choice via violence or duress. And willfully lying is the theft of necessary information, which negatively impacts someone else's ability to engage in informed decision-making. These immoral behaviors constitute the very definition of violence. Violence is the initiation of harmful behavior against other sentient beings. The list of harmful behaviors just explained are transgressions against natural law because they are violations of the inherent rights of others. To violate the inherent rights of other beings through theft is actually what is meant to conduct violence. Since all wrongdoings are forms of theft, the natural law of moral conduct can ultimately be summed up in two words: don't steal. The non-aggression principle and the self-defense principle. The non-aggression principle is one of the main principles of natural law. This principle means that it is morally wrong to initiate aggression or violence upon other sentient beings. This brings us to another important principle of natural law, the self-defense principle. Individuals always reserve the natural right to use physical force to defend themselves against acts of violence conducted upon them. Self-defense is not, and should never be considered to be, violence. Self-defense against violence is an inherent right of all sentient beings. Do human beings have the right to defend themselves against aggression?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. If the aggression is physical, I would say yes.
If physical force is acted on them first.
Equality under natural law. Does everyone have the same rights? Or do some people have more rights than others?
I think people should have rights that are equal to everybody else.
I think in a perfect world, everyone would have the same rights, but as the world is right now, people don't all have the same rights.
Not everyone has the same rights.
Some people have different rights, some money, or privilege, class, things like that.
In reality, some people have way more rights than other people.
There's definitely some rights that some people possess and others don't.
Most people would agree with the fact that the behaviors which initiate harm to others are immoral actions. The problem arrives when we fail to hold everyone to the same account regarding the morality of their actions. We must understand that everyone has the same rights as everyone else, and there are no exceptions to this law. If no individual possesses the right to perform a certain action because it initiates harm to another, then no one can delegate such a non-existent right to any other individual or any other group, and thereby magically turn a wrongdoing into a right. In other words, everyone possesses exactly the same natural, inherent rights as everyone else, and there are no exceptions to this rule for individuals in government, police, military, or any other societal institution. This is what is meant by equality under natural law. Legality does not equate to morality. Is government authority morally legitimate?
I mean, I think we need laws and regulations, but I'm not sure our laws and regulations are always moral.
Not always.
Yeah, I believe it is.
To some extent.
It depends on whether the authority was, at least in our democratic tradition, whether the authority was based on the consent of the governed.
No, I feel like we'd be fine without it.
If the laws of man happen to align with the natural laws of morality, then they are, by definition, redundant and therefore unnecessary. If man's law is in opposition with natural law, and therefore false and immoral, it can never be legitimately morally binding upon anyone. Because something is either legal or illegal does not make it moral or immoral. Recognizing this, we can then arrive at the correct understanding that all so-called human authority is morally illegitimate because it is not voluntary, and it is based upon coercion and violence, which is itself immoral behavior. Natural law versus man's law. Does government authority exist in nature?
Yes, I believe it does.
Yes. Yes. In some cases more than other cases, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Today's society, yes.
I feel like you are, whatever your mind convinces itself that it is, or that you are, that's just what it is.
Well, yes, there's always a hierarchy. I mean, even in every animal species, there's a hierarchy.
Yes.
Yes, because we follow orders from our parents from time to time. Yeah, well, they're the authority figure.
Yes, because of the punishments that can happen if you go against authority.
Yeah, it does.
They do, but it's up to you whether you want to care about it or not.
It does exist in nature. I mean, if you look at animals and birds, there's a hierarchy and there's some form of government, and I'm okay with that.
Governmental authority is an illegitimate, man-made construct that does not exist in nature. The belief system that certain people can somehow possess legitimate authority over others, or that some people have more or less inherent rights than others, is one of the most fundamental causes of unparalleled suffering and death in our world. Authority is, and always has been, an untrue, illusory, illegitimate, and immoral claim, which is, unfortunately, accepted and believed in by most human beings with absolute religious fervor. The so-called delegation of authority to politicians, police, and military is inherently morally illegitimate and cannot actually be done in nature, since it is impossible to bestow or delegate a, quote, right to someone else, which no one possesses as an individual. The human condition is slavery. Is taxation by government morally legitimate?
Yes, it's morally legitimate because there are people who are not, yes, I'm just going to say yes.
Yes, because we need to fund things.
To some extent, but I think it has to be fair taxation.
I think it would depend on what the taxes are going to.
I don't think it's morally legitimate. Again, I do think it is needed to fund resources and things like that, but I don't think it's a moral issue.
I think so because if we didn't have taxes, we wouldn't be taking care of the greater good, roads, education, etc.
Well, the way we've set up our culture, that's the only thing that makes it work.
Paying taxes? No. Like, I mean, where does it go? Where does it go? It's like, I mean, we all experience this. You work, get a check, and then you see a chunk of it missing, and no one's telling you why it's missing. Hell no. Yeah, no.
Money and taxes, I think there's a lot of bullshit involved because a lot of money is thrown around, like huge amounts of it, at things like politics and war. And a lot of taxes go into things that aren't really helping most people. They're helping a few people do not so good things.
Taxation is theft enforced by the threat of coercion and violence. Are drug laws morally legitimate and necessary, or do people have the right to put into their body what they choose?
If society is charged with the responsibility of funding the health and welfare of everyone in society, then I think there should be laws that prevent people from incurring health risks they would not otherwise occur had they not taken the drugs.
If they promise never to leave the house, but that doesn't happen, so yeah, we have to babysit people, unfortunately.
In my experience, it's kind of like it is their own choice for what they put in their bodies, but at some point you do want the government to step in because you don't want it to become like an entire crisis where you're losing like an entire portion of your country's population due to that drug.
Yeah, so people have the right to put whatever they want to their body, but they also must not let that affect other people around them.
Well, I do not agree with all of the laws, and I think that to a limit that everyone has a choice on that, but I don't think that it should be readily available if it's toxic.
Depends on the drug and how bad it is for you.
I believe they should have the right.
I think people have the right to, I mean, it is our body. We're born into it.
I think they help. They help, but some of them, I would say, are a little over the top. Some of them are a little under.
People own their body and have a right to choose what they put into it. Are driver's licenses morally legitimate and necessary, or is travel an inherent right?
Driver license is definitely necessary, otherwise there would be way too many accidents.
I think unlicensed travel is a right.
I think you do need a license because that proves that you're able to drive safely.
I think driver's licenses are morally necessary and legitimate.
I would want someone who's going to be driving a car to know how to drive a car. So yes, I would say that driver's licenses are pretty necessary.
You need a license if you see people driving in Philly.
Have you seen people driving? They're texting, they're not paying attention. We got to babysit people, unfortunately.
Driving licenses are necessary because I feel like you shouldn't be able to drive after a certain age.
I think there could be even more rules with driver's licenses, actually. I think they're too lax.
That's another interesting question. I know a few people without licenses who drive, but I don't think it's 100% ethical, or I think there are some drawbacks to that, mainly the application process.
Licensed drivers is morally legitimate.
Driver's licenses are a coercive restriction on the natural human right to travel. If a government law prohibits an action that doesn't cause harm to anyone else, are people morally obligated to obey that law?
Yes, it brings peace to the society.
I think they should still obey it because it's a law.
It depends on what the purpose of the law was. It might have a purpose other than harm. It might be for a greater good, or it might be, so that's a definite maybe.
No, I don't believe so.
No, I don't think so.
Dude, I just want to yell through this whole video.
That would be the law, but I don't think that everyone, I think there's...
Listen, I get it. This is the average person in America, though. That's what he's trying to show with this documentary. It's amazing.
I think legally they're obligated,
I know.
but on a personal level, I don't think they are.
Like, I actually get
No,
that.
I don't feel like it. You should,
I thought
because
this black
it's
dude
like
here
they
was
make it so
doing
that you
really
have to,
well
or else
earlier.
you'll be punished for it. But
Well, be patient, because he clears it up each time. That's why he does this. You know, it's like it's a tactic.
No, because he said
Man-made laws that are in moral
should
opposition
be
to
required.
natural law are morally illegitimate and therefore not morally binding.
Should be required. You should be able to drive.
Listen, this is the guy who's running the show right here. He's the one talking right now. He's telling you the truth,
they are
not
mutually
those
agreed
people
upon
that don't know
by
no
all
better.
of the involved participants. Man-made laws, including those which decree and enact behaviors such as prohibition, taxation, and licensure, are not voluntary in any way. They are commands of compliance, which are always backed by the threat of violence or actual violent behavior. Man-made laws are arbitrary decrees of a ruling class calling themselves government, who are believed to possess a magical right to rule. Their subjects, the people living under their so-called jurisdiction, are believed to have a moral obligation to obey this ruling class's arbitrary commands called laws. Understanding that such a system is entirely based in behavior that is coercive, violent, and immoral, and conducted to bring human behavior into compliance with the...
Then I don't see the problem with, say, 5 or 10% of your wage going towards fixing up, like, the actual...
Yeah, hold on a second here. Hold on, I just transitioned over so we could talk for a minute. Because it seems like there's a little bit of conflict here. And I think you're misinterpreting what's going on here. What Mark did... Hold on, let me explain...
No, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, hold on, let me explain it. DK, let me just tell you, dude. Like, he went out, he had people go out in the street and talk to the average person. And the average person gave those dumbass answers.
Yeah, there was like 1 or 2 people each time with each question that I agreed with. And that was it. Only 1 or 2 each time.
Yeah, and this is the typical American. This is what we're saying, you know what I mean? Like, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to clear it up and show, like, where they're wrong, how they're wrong, and, like, lay down, like, a foundation for people to have a better understanding of how to go right. Like, that's what Mark does in this. It's a documentary. It's called The Science of Natural Law. I've been playing it. We're at minute 38 now.
Oh, yeah, I know.
We only got, like, 25 more minutes. Yeah, just to give you like a heads up of what's going on here. Like, for
wanted to say something, it's like there are bits and pieces that I agree and disagree with. His questions are worded in such a way that people are inclined to say one thing, but they still want to say the thing they're programmed with, and they don't actually critically think, so they don't have a real response.
Right.
Whereas those questions I could actually have an actual response to.
Right.
Most of them straight away was like, no, everything's wrong. No. But
no, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't believe in driver's licenses, but I think people who drive a car should be tested every 5 or 10 years to see if they can actually drive a fucking car.
Well, you wouldn't have to test people if you know,
Dude, if you're all fuckwits,
if they're educated properly, they don't have to be tested.
Would you trust a fucking 14-year-old behind the wheel who's never driven a car before?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if I'm driving, I better have these glasses on.
Oh, wait. So does that mean you have insurance? Wait, so does that mean you have insurance?
Who, me personally?
So you're paying into a corporation in case someone else does something wrong?
Yeah. Yeah, it's craziness.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. See, I actually go further into this. I think people who drive should be tested to see if they're able to drive. Nothing else. I don't believe in licensing and shit. The car should be of a fit standard. There should be no compulsory insurance. If you fuck up, you're fucking paying.
Well, you're talking about a very fine line of the possibility of being a danger to others and being a danger to others, right?
It's actually not as fine a line as you think when you think of all the fucking people who come over to every country from other countries and are used to driving on different sides of the road and different road rules.
Sure.
And they don't get tested when they get to your country to see if they're safe to drive in your country.
Right.
Yeah, no, there's actually a lot more to that one. See, that's what
yeah, but like driver's license is just one.
There's only 2. That one and the tax thing.
Yeah.
I think 5 or 10% of people's wages, and that's like if you're a multi-millionaire or poor as fuck. 5 or 10% should go towards like infrastructure, keeping roads going, sewers going, fucking all the things that the council actually runs.
A collective consensus.
But this isn't a proper society where money isn't just printed from thin air and means nothing.
Right.
So if they can just constantly print money, why the fuck are we paying them money? That's the difference. That's what I said. That one is in a proper society. I would not have a problem with tax. We don't live in a proper society.
Right. Let me push on with this because we only got another 20 minutes or so, and I just want to get through it, man. It's almost over now. So I actually used this particular video clip. I've used in some of my short videos that I've thrown up on TikTok and whatnot of this kid getting handcuffed by this jackbooted thug here. But yeah, let's get into this. It's almost over. So
of a dominating ruling class, we can arrive at the unwavering truth that the term government is simply a euphemism for slavery. And that is what the human condition truly is: slavery. Slavery exists when certain individuals make a claim upon the body or the fruits of the labor of others, making them subject to them through violent and coercive means. Slavery can exist in an overt form, in which those being enslaved are physically imprisoned and subject to the confiscation of all their labor. Or slavery can exist in covert form, where mental manipulation is used to legitimize or justify the duress, coercion, and violence that is used to perpetuate the immoral conditions in which people are unjustly kept.
Platforms push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
There is a reason the condition of human slavery continues on and on. This immoral human condition is maintained by the occult ruling class by manipulating people into a state of ignorance and confusion regarding the actual difference between right and wrong. Objective morality. Is morality objective or subjective?
I think morality, to some extent, is human interpretation, but there is a clear right and wrong on other topics.
I think it depends on, definitely depends on who you are, because a different person could see it a completely different way. You get what I'm saying?
I think it depends on the situation.
I believe morality is based on opinion. I mean, I don't really believe that you're necessarily born with a good or bad morale. It's basically based on your life circumstances.
I think it's definitely subjective.
I think it depends on opinion and the situation.
I think it's dependent on human opinion.
No, I don't believe that there's such thing as objective morality.
I mean, I'm inclined to say that it exists, objective morality, but I don't think that we have the capacity to understand something that all-encompassing.
I think morality is objective.
Objective. I mean, mostly on human perception, but I'd say there's like a societal viewpoint,
It's a tough question. The way I feel about it is if you're not hurting anyone and if it makes you happy, why not?
Sadly, I think it's subjective, and that it's open for agreement or discussion, kind of.
I think it's written in. I think it should be pretty clear. I think it's written in stone, and it's to some point with some opinion, I guess.
I don't think it's written in stone. I think it is subjective, actually. I think it's subjective. Yeah, okay.
I personally think it's more objective than relative.
The difference between right behavior and wrong behavior is objective, meaning it is not based upon the perceptions or opinions of human beings, but rather such a difference in behavior exists in nature purely independently of subjective human perception or opinion. Morality does not change based upon feelings, religion, belief, location, time, or the preferences and whims of man's law. These things have no...
DK, hold on, DK, you're muted, man. Unmute yourself.
I actually thought those two words meant the opposite of what he's saying now.
Isn't that something?
I thought objective was from their personal opinion, whereas subjective meant the actual opinion. So I think I had that backwards. But I'm not sure.
But the whole concept of morality and...
Yeah.
You know, the whole concept of morality, man. That's the key that turns all the locks. You know, like,
oh, yeah, no, I didn't mean that. No, I mean, I agree with the opinions. I just think I had the terms backwards, and I'm trying to, like, get that sorted.
So...
It's like, I thought objective meant from your perspective.
So if you look, like, you can see my picture, right? I've got this big key hanging on the wall right here. This big key is the key to everything. That's morality.
Yeah, no, I can't see your picture. You don't have your camera on, dickhead.
Oh. You're not watching the stream. Hold on. We'll do it this way.
I'm watching it on Discord. I'm streaming it off Discord, actually.
Hold on.
Because then there's no delay. If I'm watching Twitch and talking to you, there's like a delay of like all the actions and everything I'm saying from when I've actually said it.
So you should be able to see it now.
Yeah.
All right. So hold on. Let me see what I'm doing wrong now, because now I'm doing something wrong. No, I'm not.
Yeah, no, but all I was saying is, I think, no, I'm actually saying
see the big key, though?
I'm saying I may have had the terminology or the definitions of the word objective and subjective wrong.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. That's all I want clarified, what objective and subjective actually mean. Because I really had the opposite opinion of what they were compared to what's being said.
I get it. And you know, like, I had to go to a jail cell to crack a dictionary and figure out what words meant. And I was surprised.
School did that to me. Dude, I'm pretty sure I wrote out like half a dictionary while I was at school, just for like detentions. It got to the point where I asked them to stop giving me another letter to start on. Because I was just bored writing out the same first few pages of the dictionary. So give me another letter.
He's hitting the nail right on the head, though. Talking about morality. Morality. He's hitting the nail right on the head, bro.
Bearing upon true morality.
I'm just thinking.
What is moral in one place and time is moral at all places and times. And what is immoral in one place or time is immoral everywhere and at any time. Conscience. The knowledge of this objective difference between right and wrong behavior is called conscience. Conscience is the knowledge of whether any particular behavior in question does or does not initiate harm to another, and therefore whether it is right or wrong. The problem is that most people do not possess this knowledge, or they are extremely confused regarding it. To behave with right action is moral, and to behave with wrong action is immoral. Yet this fundamental understanding is often grossly misunderstood. People do not get to decide what morality is. Morality is based upon whether an action initiates harm or not. This dynamic exists inherently in the natural world. Where do human rights come from?
Religion, government, society. I guess it depends. on the country that's allowing human rights, I'm sure.
Some from the laws, some from, yeah, I think from the law.
They apparently are decided by many people.
My
Well,
apologies
since you're
if
not
you were
bored
getting
with
an
it, I
echo
think
there,
it's like a
DJ.
collective. I think they come from your
I'm getting
fellow
better at this.
woman or man.
Yeah.
More woman, quite
I
frankly.
wasn't sure what was happening there.
Constitution.
Yeah, it was me, but I did realize.
Realistically, human rights come from law,
good.
but
I try
I
and help
think
people
they
when I
should
can.
come from the basic
time I thought it was
moral
me.
agreements
Damn, do I have
that
something
I
else to
described
play with
earlier.
volume on?
Human rights. I think human rights are inherent. The moment we're born, we are entitled to certain rights, but then those rights are also, like I said, qualified by society.
Well, human rights come from what you believe that all humans should have in general. So, like, if you believe that they should always have freedom, or if you believe that they are always entitled to something.
They should come from morality.
They come from, I guess, morality. Yeah. So.
Well, in the Christian tradition, we say they come from God.
Human rights should come from within and should come from a natural place, but I think in our society they come from governments.
The inherent rights of human beings are their inalienable, universal birthright and can never be granted or removed by any action or process of mankind. Our rights come from nature, meaning they are pre-existing and inherent to creation itself. Unfortunately, after thousands of years of human civilization, most people still do not understand this eternal truth. It seems so simple that we as human beings should willfully choose to take right action, to honor and respect the rights of others not to be harmed, to treat others with the same respect with which we expect to be treated, not to steal the life, well-being, property, rights, or free will of others. Yet it is not as simple as it may seem. True right action is elusive at best and deliberately ignored at worst. And this brings us to the crux of the matter, which is what I refer to as the law of freedom. The law of freedom.
Damn, I wish I could make videos.
The law of freedom
too, bro.
governs
I'm
the
working on
states
it.
of freedom or slavery of entire populations of beings who possess the capacity to comprehend the objective difference between moral behavior and immoral behavior. The natural law of
any of what he said is shit I wouldn't say myself.
Yeah, and that's the basis. Like, yo, look, like, I'm gonna stop it for a minute because you're absolutely right. Like, these are fundamental things that we all have within us, bro. It's not like he's not asking you to subscribe to anything. He's telling you to look at reality as it exists and figure it out, man. It's not rocket science.
I've just had so many people run Pessio down to me that it actually got to the point where I didn't watch enough of his stuff.
I don't think it's possible to watch all the stuff in one lifetime.
No, I'm serious. Because too many Christians on my channels and shit, and they're like all against the natural law thing and shit. So yeah, so I've had shitloads of people run me down about everyone who's trying to say what's going on because they're not Christian enough.
Yeah, I don't debate that stuff. I mean, being a Christian is a self-defined label. You know what I mean? Like, I consider myself to be as enlightened as I can be.
I do actually debate it, but I tell everyone who wants to that they shouldn't even start.
Yeah, I try to remain all-inclusive. In fact, I don't use words like God. I use words like source. There's only one source.
I like higher power or use the word God. So
yeah, that's fine. Whatever suits the individual. I'm saying, like, for me on a personal level,
use the word God so people understand. But my beliefs aren't any one of anything. I came to my beliefs myself when I was 19, taking hallucinogenics.
yeah, that'll jumpstart it.
Yeah, no, so I came to my beliefs when I was 19. I'd already believed that there was a God, but wasn't sure what the fuck I believed in for 2 years. At 19, yeah, hallucinogenics, and was shown the fact that the world, the universe, everything is basically just balance. It's not about good and evil, it's about keeping balance. There has to be the dark for there to be the light, because without dark there can't be light. But if something is growing too strong and overpowering the light, then the light needs to fight back and balance it out. Everything is just balance. Karma.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me finish this video. We're almost done. Couple more minutes, man. He's right on money with it, though. We got it. Hold up.
Freedom dictates that as a society collectively becomes more moral, they collectively become more free. And as a society collectively becomes more immoral, they collectively lose their freedom and become more enslaved. The freedom or slavery of an entire society is hinged upon whether that society behaves in the aggregate morally or immorally. Since most people still do not truly know the objective difference between right and wrong behavior, they are constantly making judgments that do not align with natural law. As more and more people act in such an ignorant capacity with respect to natural law, this conduct becomes a fundamental source of disorder and chaos in our society as a whole. In other words, the law of freedom could be summarized like this. As the aggregate moral behavior in any given society increases, the aggregate freedom of the members of that society also increases. And as the aggregate moral behavior of any given society declines, the aggregate freedom of the members of that society also declines. Even more simply put, as morality increases, freedom increases. And as morality declines, freedom declines. Therefore, human freedom is entirely dependent upon educated judgments that align with natural law-based morality, the objective knowledge of the difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. Believe it or not, you have just been given the secret of secrets of all secret societies throughout human history. Moral relativism. Moral relativism is the belief that there is no objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior. Moral relativists believe that morality is relative or subjective, meaning that right and wrong can change with respect to time and location, depending upon human perception and opinion, likes and dislikes, whims and preferences. Moral relativism is the belief that human beings may arbitrarily decide for themselves what right and wrong are, and that they may become the arbiters of moral and immoral behavior based upon their likes and dislikes at any given time or place. It is absolutely essential for humanity to recognize that morality is objective, and that it is most certainly not based upon human perception or opinion. There is definitely an objective difference in nature between moral behavior and immoral behavior, because moral behavior does not initiate harm to others, whereas immoral behavior does initiate harm. These dynamics exist within and are inherent to the natural world. The prevalence of moral relativism in human society today is one of the main factors which solidifies slavery as the current human condition. Since aligning human behavior with natural law hinges upon knowing the objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior, if most members of a society accept that there is no truth regarding those objective differences, that society can never consistently behave morally, and therefore they can never truly be free. True freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism, a society where people believe there is no objective difference between right and wrong behavior. Knowing the objective difference between right and wrong, and then willfully choosing right action over wrong action, is the foundational basis for the manifestation of the condition of freedom. If human beings remove that foundation by declaring that there is no objective morality, they will never be able to manifest a condition of genuine freedom in their lives. Understanding true objective morality will help humanity to recognize the fundamentally flawed belief in the legitimacy of human authority and government. By doing so, human interaction can become voluntary and free from the immorality of violence and coercion. If we want a world based in real freedom, we must understand that truth is independent of our perception, and that objective morality exists, and we can come to know it. If people learn the true difference between right and wrong behavior, humanity can become and remain free. If human beings continue to refuse this knowledge and continue to accept erroneous beliefs such as authority and moral relativism, humanity is going to remain enslaved. Free will.
Hey John, I've just
Do
had
human
someone
beings
ask,
have
someone else
free will?
ask if they can get on voice chat.
We think we do, but I don't believe so.
Human beings, for
Yeah,
the
set
most
'em a
part,
link.
have free will.
Set them a
To some
link.
extent, we're not always free to do everything, which I think it should be. I think it should be left like that.
I don't.
Listen, absolutely. Send them a link. Send them a link.
Don't believe so. No.
Yes, in my opinion, I believe that humans have free will. I mean, I don't believe that you're living your life under somebody's control.
Free will. I think we do have free will. We do have free will, but that free will is also suppressed by social norms.
No, actually, no. I don't think human beings have free will.
Yes.
Well, we think we do, but in truth, I don't think we do.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes and no.
Yes, or they should.
In some cases.
Yes.
All human beings have the free will to choose between moral behavior and immoral behavior. We have a choice as a people. We can use our free will to change our behavior and bring it into alignment with natural law by choosing morally right action. Or we can choose to behave immorally by condoning and perpetuating a system based in violence, coercion, and moral relativism. Will we continue down the path of slavery, watching our inherent rights stripped from us little by little? Or will we embrace the moral principles of natural law and create a society where each individual's life, rights, and freedom are respected and protected because we recognize our inherent sovereignty and the sovereignty of all other sentient beings? The law of freedom will manifest our reality in either direction based upon our collective moral choices. The science of natural law. Our shared human experience on Earth is collectively created and determined by the quality of aggregate human behavior. This demonstrates the effects of the natural laws of behavioral consequence operating within the physical realm. Our free will-based behaviors operate in what is known as the plane of causality, because our behavior is the underlying cause of the physical manifestations which result in the world. The consequences and repercussions of aggregate human behavior then materialize upon the plane of effects, which constitutes the shared human condition in which all of us must live. Our aggregate thoughts regarding morality are transformed into the aggregate behavior of our species, and that behavior is then transformed into resultant conditions and consequences. Truly, we collectively reap that which we collectively sow. Wrongful action can never create goodness and harmony, and right action can never constitute a violation of rights. 2 plus 2 will never equal 5, and the apple falling from a tree will never fall upwards in elementary terms. Our behavior creates our circumstances. These dynamics can be repeatedly observed, and their workings can be known as a result of such observation. The study of these dynamics in human society constitutes a science of behavioral consequence. All living beings are endowed with self-ownership as an inherent birthright, and therefore possess the natural right to exercise their own free will to live in sovereignty, free from the initiation of harm or coercion by other human beings. These principles of human freedom and rights are the very basis of morality, and are governed by the spiritual laws of behavioral consequence. Any and all violations of these principles are wrongdoings, chaotic actions working in direct opposition to the generative, self-ordering dynamics of natural law as designed by creation itself. Though some may attempt to do so, these laws ultimately cannot be worked around, changed, skirted, or bent to suit human whims or desires. To choose to observe the natural rights and sovereignty of other beings is in alignment with spiritual law, and such choice will create the conditions for freedom to manifest upon earth. To choose to conduct wrongdoings in direct violation of these laws will manifest only chaos and suffering. Human behavior is collectively manifested into our physical reality based upon humanity's free will choice whether to act in harmony with natural law, thus creating the conditions of freedom, or to act in opposition to natural law, thus creating the condition of human slavery. These are the universal, moral, spiritual laws of the universe that govern all of humankind. This is the science of natural law. The one great work. My unwavering dedication to delivering the message of natural law in every conceivable form for the past 13 years has gone virtually unnoticed by humanity as a whole, and society continues its rapid descent into immorality, chaos, and slavery. Far too few understand or take heed of my warnings, and even fewer speak out to teach others. I am seeking peers and allies in the war for our very freedom that is before us. Our one great work is to end the human condition of slavery. This arduous task begins with the self and extends to our friends and family, our communities, and our world. Speaking out is an extreme act of defiance, because those who are currently in power seek to keep their power by exploiting the ignorance of mankind. There is so much human ignorance in the world today regarding the issue of morality that the situation can seem hopeless. Becoming aware of the level of ignorance that exists, we must also come to see that the only solution to the human condition of slavery is to spread the understanding of natural law and make it common sense knowledge for everyone. The dark occultists who are currently controlling humanity seek to continue to hide this understanding and to prevent it from becoming everyday common sense knowledge on a worldwide scale. Ultimately, this documentary is a call to action for all those who have gained an understanding of natural law and its principles. A lot more teachers are needed to carry this message of freedom to the masses of humanity. There are not yet enough voices doing this. You yourself need to get involved in the effort of spreading the knowledge of natural law. The solution lies in not just knowing it, but in what you do to spread this knowledge once you have come to understand it. Start a podcast, publish a blog, make a video, publish a newsletter, make music and art, contribute resources. Do anything and everything you can to make natural law common sense knowledge to people all over the world. Only with a united effort will we have a fighting chance. We need more boots on the ground in this spiritual war for human freedom. Once you have expanded your worldview to encompass an understanding of the science of natural law, it becomes your personal responsibility to help others to learn these inherent governing dynamics of creation. Our very freedom itself depends on it. This has been an introduction to the philosophy and science of natural law. For further study, please watch my full video seminar entitled Natural Law, the Real Law of Attraction and How to Apply It in Your Life. For more information on my work, please visit my website, whatonearthishappening.com. I recommend studying my podcasts in order, starting from number 1 at your own pace, and watching my video presentations and seminars. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Yeah, so there was a lot of work and there was a lot of work and a lot of effort that went involved in that presentation.
Don't get me wrong. And who was it that said it? Shit. Afix said it last night. Talking about, what is it, Dinesh, whatever his last name is. Dinesh Souza or whatever. Whoever made the 2000 Mules documentary.
Right.
He was saying he didn't like him. He hadn't heard any good things about him. Didn't like the person. But there was nothing he could dispute about that documentary. Yeah, other than like, the people could make up the GPS lines and just do that with computer. Other than that, it's all like flat out video evidence. And this is like kind of the same. It's like there's not much in this that I can dispute and I disagree with. I think I pointed out the two things earlier on that I disagree with. I don't think everyone should just be allowed to drive a car. I don't know if they need a license. Just actually go through a test to see if they can fucking drive a car. Like that simple. Like, yeah, that one I agree with. That one I disagree with. I don't agree with complete utter free reign, because that's actually Luciferian and that's just do as thou wilt.
Yeah, exactly. This is
why I have a problem, because even though he's trying to say it's not that, he's still actually promoting that.
Right.
So that's what, yeah. See, people don't quite get that.
They don't get that. You ain't lying.
Luciferian.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And see, I don't believe in that. I'm fucking Celtic, bro.
Well, it's not a matter of believing in it. You got to understand that there's people in the world walking around that do believe in it, and they happen to be running shit right now. You know what I mean? Like,
I know that, understand that, and I'm prepared to die against it.
yeah, I'm just saying, bro. It's a real thing.
I've been saying it for months. I am prepared to die against it. It's like I do not think I will survive what is coming. I'll keep doing what I'm doing till they stop me.
Yeah, so.
They will not put me in a quarantine camp, because I've said out loud too many times. You put me in a quarantine camp with people who are like the same as me, all you've done is given me an army.
Well, it's been my experience inside of the jail system. I spent 8 years of my life inside of the jail system, so there's nowhere that they can put me that I haven't already experienced some level of that.
I got sentenced to a year, but I only did like a couple of months. Then I was on home detention. Home detention was worse. That was like being on solitary confinement for like the next 5 months. Like serious, because I was just home by myself all day, and people didn't want to come visit me because people were allowed to check up on me at any point in time. So people didn't want to come around, have a session or have a drink with me and shit. So no one came and see me.
The DUI thing's a big deal. You can't drink and drive. You put too many people at risk. You put yourself at risk.
Yeah, I learned to drink. I learned to drive while drinking, unfortunately.
Well, I used to drive and smoke crack at the same time. There was a day and a time in my life. I also attempted to drive and use needles, but that didn't work out too well either.
I actually learned to drive while drunk.
It's just been a long time.
Like, I've been drinking with my dad and family and shit all day, and everyone's like, oh, we're off to this next pub, and everyone jumps in the car. My dad's like, all right, I'm teaching you to drive. The pub was only like 30 kilometers away, you know, 25 miles or some shit, 23, 22. Yeah, I don't know exactly. But yeah.
Well, it looks like there's a couple people reaching out trying to get in. So we're not gonna stop talking to people. We're gonna add more people to the discussion as they show up. So if you're still trying to get in out there, I see I made title cards. I'm aware. Just jump on in if you feel like it, and we'll work it out from there. But I do want to play this final clip on William Cooper before it gets too late, because I want people to understand this man and his life and death, man, because he was somebody that spoke truth to his last breath.
Am I correct about how he died?
Well, that's what I'm going to show you right now. You're going to enjoy this. You're going to enjoy this. That's exactly the clip that I have ready to go.
Is this the actual video footage of when he got shot?
I don't know if it has that in it. They're really hard to find. They scrubbed a lot of that stuff. But if you go into the dark net, maybe through a torrent or something, you can find it.
I used to have that as well, and I can't find it again anymore myself.
All right, so let's give it a shot here and see if this particular one includes that. This is the best one that I could find. I haven't been able to find others because it's just so scrubbed. It's crazy. Yeah. Let's get in there and see what it looks like, right?
I've got the 42 of the 1 hour things. I've got all of them as one playlist. I can send that to you later.
All right, hold on. Let's go ahead and hit the play.
Right-wing lunatic that was encouraging the activities of Timothy McVeigh. While in fact Timothy McVeigh did listen to William Cooper and in fact visited him, came up to Bill's Hill to visit him, Bill told him to get lost.
Michael Brescia, who is John Doe number 2, the spitting image of the drawings that they put out, wearing the exact same
This is when it was coming to an end, right here, when he was zooming in on this shit.
With the same tattoo on his left arm, stood in front of me for 10 minutes and talked to me in the company of Timothy McVeigh. And Tim McVeigh was not the leader. Tim McVeigh probably didn't say more than 25 or 30 words during the entire time. Michael Brescia did all of the talking. And the last thing he said before they left in their green Mercury Marquis station wagon with a puke yellow interior was watch Oklahoma City. If anyone was in charge, at least on that day, it was Michael Brescia, John Doe number 2, not ever Timothy McVeigh. They told us during that conversation that they were setting out on a mission to make things better in this country, and that they had the approval of the United States Army, who had implanted them with computer chips, had given them their blessings, and knew exactly where they were and what they were doing all the time.
Bill was left to lie there in the front yard. Non-lethal devices are the supposed norm in the country and this state. It's supposedly stressed and was verified in newspaper articles afterwards, not even pertaining to Bill's case, just informational articles out of the Arizona Republic. No such device was used, nets, stun guns, anything. All the fancy foams and rubber bullets, none of that. The Apache County coroner, to declare Bill dead and deny him, obviously, medical treatment if he's dead, happened to be Dr. Scott Hamlin. He was not called, theoretically, because he'd be a conflict of interest, which he would be, but I can't believe they used such wise judgment now all of a sudden. So Navajo County had to be called to clear the next county over. And obviously woken up, all this stuff. So there's a huge time frame here. But Bill received no medical treatment. The sheriff's deputies took it in their own hands, and the paramedics, that he did not need to be treated. He was just gone for good, and that's all there was to it. DPS is wrapping up their all-day-long site investigation. Bill's body has been out there all day, so who knows how it was tampered with. Cameras, nobody was allowed up there. You couldn't get within it to get camera views. Even the helicopters were shunned off, so they couldn't get views of the body. So there's no way to ever tell if it was moved 100 times maybe before the ambulance picked it up. It was then taken to Tucson Forensics Lab for an autopsy.
Since Bill's body was lying by the doorstep of his house for approximately 15 hours while officials waited for a robot to be sent up from Phoenix in order to evaluate the house and property for explosives. Informants testified to law enforcement fully automatic AK-47 gun by his door, and his house was wired with explosives. No explosives or booby traps were found, and alleged fully automatic AK by the door.
Those of you who are smart enough to know what is transpiring here know that these are historic broadcasts, and by making these broadcasts, I have sealed my fate.
I believe this. I found this to be true. If you're not walking on the razor blade, you're really living in a kind of death existence. You have to have that danger facing you that if I slip, I'm dead. That's what makes you live. That's what gives you life. That's what gives you purpose. And I sincerely believe that any man or woman who does not have principles for which they're ready and willing to die for at any given moment that they're called upon to do that is already dead and are of no use or consequence to themselves or anyone else, and will be unhappy throughout their life for that very reason and that very reason alone.
Okay, this is Main Street of Springerville, the town that's connected to Eager, and this is the also the highway coming into Springerville from St. John's. This is our research center that we opened up after Bill's death. We had to close it due to financial constraints recently. You're seeing the last of it. What this room contained was the core research books and articles. Along every wall that you see, 7 shelves high, literally from the floor to up high, was solid books. We categorized them and alphabetized them by category, and then alphabetized them in each category, so it was easy to look up. Down the middle here were all desks, and with all the outlets, we had the ability that people could come in and use each format of media, for instance, beta, VHS, High 8, whatever, with a monitor, and they could use books, and I made arrangements with the copy shop down the street, and they would make copies for us at a reduced rate. That way the books never left the building. This whole front portion from this here was solid file cabinets, completely packed full, every single drawer, the big file cabinets of individual pieces of research material. Rare transcripts, any of that stuff, all this we still possess. I just have it in safe storage now. This was the studio, the audio and video portions. Watch your step. Back here, just the remnants of cable. All my masters are just down here on the floor. Bills are all preserved in a safe place. Those are just the masters of all my broadcast. And in here was audio and video setup and all our duplication, order fulfillment. And here is the famous microphone that Bill loved so much and talked about on the air, the RCA tube mic, right here. He really liked this microphone a lot. From when he got it, that's all he used on the broadcast.
How old is it?
Oh, 40s. This is one of his Vietnam service medals. Now, some of his were just destroyed over the years, moving. So he had put together this batch prior to his death because he wanted to kind of make it an assemblage of the medals that were over there at the time that people were earning for the Qua Viet website. And this one's the Republic of Vietnam's service medal. Here's the commendation medal. And above them you see the ribbon that you wear. This is really for decorative purposes only. And historical, really, you don't ever wear these except for when they're pinned on you and you take them off. This one right here is Naval Service, and here is National Defense Service.
I think you get the idea. Like, this guy had, like, stuff going on. Like, he was the real deal, man. And, like, they wiped him out. You know what I mean? Like, they just totally wiped him out. Wiped him off the face of the earth. Hold on. Let me get back to the stream correctly here. I'm doing it wrong.
No, just hold on a sec. Did you hear what I was saying before? It's about Bill Cooper.
Yeah, say it.
Yeah, the video I saw that showed his death was a rubbish truck pulled up, and the guy on the back of the rubbish truck, because he came down bringing his rubbish bin down, the guy on the back of the rubbish truck reaches into the back of the truck, turns around, guns him down, puts it back in the back of the truck, and they drive off. That's some fucking shit-ass car, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember I watched a lot of footage over the years. The things that I was focusing most on was the fact that somehow, some way, McVeigh was tied in with the government. It was a plot to knock out all the records and destroy all the records and evidence in the Oklahoma City federal building. I just want to update viewers so they know what's going on. I got a copyright strike or some kind of strike. No, it was a content strike this time on YouTube. So that account went down. I had to fire up the other YouTube and launch it in here so that I'm still streaming, and it's hashtag stop the vote. I also want to point. Hold on. I also want to point out that on Facebook, on all my accounts on Facebook, because I'm streaming to 2 or 3 platforms on, accounts on Facebook, they've got it covered. It says, "We covered your post because it may show graphic content." This post doesn't. This is what it says. This is hilarious. This post doesn't go against our community standards, but it may be sensitive to some people. Well, screw you.
Right. Hey,
defriend me. Unfollow me.
Hey, D-Live made up a rule to ban me. I've still not to this day heard of anyone being banned for what I got banned for.
I got banned for
honestly
gardening,
made
bro.
up a rule to ban me. It's like,
hey, John.
No, because I've been done for copyright a couple of times.
Okay, hold on. We got another participant.
I was playing movies and music and shit. But they made up a new rule. They said I got banned because I did not forward all of my material to them in advance for them to check if it was copyrighted or not.
Right, so we actually have somebody that just stepped into the room. Give me a second here to
Corey's
make sure.
here.
What's
I mean,
up,
to be
Corey?
honest, you just follow their guidelines. It says it explicitly. Like,
I
if you're
could
going to be
care
on
less
YouTube, it's your
guys.
choice.
We're at
If you don't
war.
want to be on YouTube, it's also your choice. I mean,
No, I
that's
said
how
that.
the
No, I
market
said that
works.
was on. No, I said that was on DLive. DLive did it to me. DLive
Yeah, they're
made up
pretty
a new
mainstream.
rule to ban me. Yeah.
DLive's
DLive
pretty
actually-
mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was the first place I started actually really streaming. I was streaming 24/7 on DLive till late last year, when they finally banned my third account, and that excuse got used against me twice, and I've still never heard of it being used against anyone else ever as a reason for being banned. That's all I'm saying. It's like they actually made up a rule to ban me.
Right.
Hey,
So,
John,
and this
we'll
is
do
what they do.
politics
This is what
section,
they
man.
do. So
Why don't you enter politics section? You're not going to get as many people and just chatting. You got to go to politics section, man.
Well,
I'm on. What am I on? Talk shows and podcasts.
I'm telling you, John, you'll get like literally if you, especially with how long you've been streaming, you'll get so many viewers in the politics
drop
section.
it in
I
there,
went up to
share
like
it.
20
don't
when I
know.
went there.
I'm doing the best I can with what I know.
I went to
right
actually 50. I went up to 50 viewers in politics section. Yes, if you're active.
Really?
Yes, and you communicate with the community. See, the problem is, you guys are a little older, and it's okay. You gotta kind of figure out things a little bit.
I
you
know,
know?
it's like I've just always used talk shows and podcasts. I didn't think of saying.
Yeah, no, they
I
can
was
tell. They're not gonna
political.
click it. People are not gonna click something they think is like a pre-recorded thing. Like that's why
Ah.
you got to be an interactive streamer with the chat on the screen, with alerts,
and
with
I
all
see,
that.
no, see, I gotta be honest in that case then, because a lot of my shit is pre-recorded, and I do play a lot of stuff.
People
it's not
go to
always me.
Twitch
I
to
can't
interact with
actually be
streamers.
live. Yeah, but I can't actually be live 24/7.
And John, if you like to
every day.
interact with people, then it's perfect for you to be on this platform. But you got to have the chat on screen. You got to have alerts set up. You got to have all that, and the people will come into your stream because they'll see it. That's why people came into my stream because they saw my chat and they saw my alerts. And every time someone came in my stream, the alert would pop up. So I would talk about them, and they would know it's not like pre-recorded or anything.
I do want to say something real quick, guys. Just let me get this out. Corey, I want to thank you, sir. On a very personal level, I went through some recently, traumatic experiences, and you were readily available to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
I'm always here for you, man.
Yeah, and I do appreciate that. Thank you. So
Hey,
somehow,
put your
somewhere-
pretty face on screen, pretty
messing
boy.
up.
Hey,
Where's he at?
DK, I published a
Yeah,
new
I
video. It's pretty explosive. I'm going to put it in the Discord chat. Feel free to share it around with wherever. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll stream it after this thing.
It's
Like,
pretty
after I
big,
finish.
that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. No, what, sorry. Yeah. After I finish like talking with John and shit tonight, yeah, I'll stream it.
No worries, man. I just figured to
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want with it.
I'll do lots with it. You just don't want to know about it.
Yeah. John, I've been watching the stream, though. I have it open in one of my tabs. And I like everything you've been playing. I saw the Mark documentary and some other things, the Bill Cooper thing. And
Well, you know,
it's
like-
nice. I think you got to be in the politics section because you're not going to be seen in just chatting unless people keep scrolling all the way to the bottom. The only way they can find you is through channel recommendations, which is going to be really rare because you don't communicate with other streamers. So, like, politics is the best place to start.
I think I need to do the same thing because, like, just the things that you just mentioned is the reasons to why he should go to politics. That
The reason why I don't stream that much is because it's exhausting. But I mean, like, for me, because I put a lot of effort into it each time I go live and I interact with the chat. It's too much for me, especially since I already create video content. But
yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't do the create video content. I just do the
That's fine.
full-time live
Dude,
stream.
people
yeah, no, that's
react
what I mean.
all the
So I
time.
do actually, so I do actually interact. And
So,
shit.
on
But
that
I don't
note-
have videos out there, but I don't have videos out there that attract more viewers.
Yeah,
That's
but
the difference.
on that note, Corey just released today, The Ugly Truth About Politics, and since he came on, I mean, we've got to play this. So, you guys want to see the Ugly Truth About Politics by Corey Enderlock? Thank you, sir. Let's get that going.
How long does she go for, buddy?
Yeah, how long is this one? 10 minutes. That's pretty good, right? Is it 10 minutes or 19 minutes?
It's
Excellent.
19 minutes.
19 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
It's a mini
shit,
documentary.
No problem with that.
Yeah, let's
Fuck
check
yes,
it out,
scream
Corey. I'm
Go
excited,
nuts,
man.
bro.
I'm
Hell yes.
excited.
Thanks, guys.
Dude, you know we're like here to all help each other. None of us are trying to screw each other over. That's the difference between us and most other people.
Uh-oh, hold on. We don't have no volume.
Today.
Start it over here. Hold on.
Where am I
Hold
looking?
on.
Do I have to go to Twitch?
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen on Discord, so just give me a second here. Nope, that's the one.
John, go to the politics section.
Yeah, we got it.
Before we do this is the perfect
How?
time.
How?
Perfect time. Okay, how? All right.
Hold on.
That's why I
Here.
haven't
Well, listen,
done
I'm not against on-the-fly advice, so let's get it going, right? So I'm going to go into my channel,
John, type
video
that in your
producer.
chat.
I'm going into video producer. Is that where I do it, in video producer?
So, John, look at the message I just sent you. Type that in your chat because it'll moderate me. Basically, he's going to type /mod, my name, and then I'll do it for you. I'll be your moderator, okay?
Yep. You're just fucked now. You've just been taken over.
By him,
We're
I'm not.
taking
Listen,
over.
I'm not too concerned
Come on.
about Corey. All right, so where's the chat at? How come
I can't do much as a moderator anyways, but I can definitely change the section in the title, I'm pretty sure.
Really? In Twitch? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't actually think you could. That's cool.
Give me a
Can
second.
someone do that for me? Someone change mine to politics.
Why can't I get it? All right, so I'm going into general, and did you drop it in general, or what am I supposed to?
I typed it in a personal message on Discord.
No, I didn't see the one that she sent straight to me. Sorry. I like being
Does that
a
do
dick
anything?
sometimes.
Did that do anything? Or did I do it wrong?
Let me check. No, I would have a green sword next to my name.
You would have a green sword next to your name.
Ah.
Yes, you deserve it.
Are you trying to mod him on Twitch? Dude,
Yeah, mod me on Twitch. You don't type it in Discord.
Yeah, no. Go
You type it
to
in
your
Twitch,
Twitch
John.
chat. Dude, go to your Twitch chat. Click on his name, and the wee person figure is mod. It's like it's a 2-button thing. You mod someone in 2 buttons.
I'll set you up
yeah,
right
I'm
now,
listening.
John. For
Yes,
success.
It's actually that easy.
So where is it going to be, in whispers or what? I don't understand because I don't have.
So
No,
your
just
regular
go to
Twitch
the main. No, go to the main chat. Corey, you'll have to type something. Doesn't matter what. You have to type something, yep. And then you can click on your name, and it'll come up with like a screen panel thing that gives them options.
He doesn't have to
And
do
the
that.
weak person figure, the weak
Listen, I
person
don't
figure
have-
means mod. But I think you might have to friend him first, or follow him first, and then you can mod them. Yeah.
No. He just has to /mod me in the chat. That's all he has to do.
I'm not finding you, Corey. I can't do it. I don't know what to do.
Okay,
I'm
so
stuck.
just go to your regular Twitch. Watch, I'm gonna help you
at
right
Twitch.
now.
I'm in my
John,
channel at
it's
Twitch.
2
I have no
seconds. Ready?
chat.
Click the link. Click the link I just sent you.
Hold on. Where did
Are
you
you on
send
your
it to
Twitch
me?
stream? Wait.
DK,
Are you
let
on
me
your
do
Twitch-
this.
Yeah.
DK, chill. One person. If there's 2 people, he's gonna have a hard time.
All right, hold on. Where are we at? Discord? You sent it to me in Discord?
Yes.
All right, hold on. I see it. That's where I was. Right?
Okay, now you see a chat bar.
I see no chat bar.
Okay, that's because you have it closed. Okay, so go. Do you see that there's an arrow pointing to the left on the right side of the screen? Go to the right of your screen. There's like an arrow pointing left. It's kind of hard to describe.
Yeah,
It's
expand.
with a.
I see it. Is that where I put this?
Click it.
There you go. There's the chat. Now type /mod. Yeah. Now don't get rid of the type part.
Right. Did I do it?
Yep. And now hit enter. Oh, wait. Get rid of that username thing. Oh, yeah. Just put my name in there. My name, if you see the way it's spelled. And then get rid of type again. Sorry. Seems like it's.
Did I do it?
And then just hit chat. Hit chat.
Bam.
You're good.
Did I do it? Did I get it? Did we get it?
Oh no, you gotta hit enter or the button. You gotta click the button chat after that.
Oh, okay. Hold on. It's very specific.
Yes.
Very specific.
Okay, nice.
All
You
right,
did it.
Chat. Bam. I think we got it now. All right, let's get back to this because this is what was important here. Let's see. Right? We're streaming my Twitch account. Like, I don't want to be doing that. Hold on. What are we talking about there, DK? DK's going crazy over there. I got him muted because I can't listen to two people at once. Sorry, DK. Yeah. Hold on, man. I'm coming back. There we go. All right. Hold on. Streams paused. There's DK. I don't have this set the way I want it. Now I do. Right. So we got to set the stream. Hold on. Give me a second, guys. Bear with me. I'm a little new to this. So it'll be, where's that window? Why is it not there? Great. So I hit it somehow. Oh, it was in here. That's right. There we go. Now we got it. And we'll cancel, and then we'll do it again. Sorry, guys. Patience. Patience is a virtue. There it is. Now I got that the way I want it to be. And I got this the way I want it to be. Sorry, guys. I know it's a little different to deal with me on this level here, so be patient, please. So we have the chat up here. All right, so he's over there doing something in the Twitch, I think. But yeah,
I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and slide this on over and play your video, because that's what I wanted to do no matter what.
The ugly truth about politics. Today, there are a lot of people talking about politics, and throughout history, politics has gotten quite ugly. But just how ugly is it, and what can we do about it? Well, let's start with the basics. In the etymological dictionary, which breaks down the roots of words, politics from the 1520s means the, quote, science and art of government. From the early 15th century, politic means, quote, pertaining to public affairs, concerning the governance of a country or people. Originally, the word may have had its roots with the Greek word polis, which means citadel, fort, city, one city, the state, community, or citizens. From these definitions, we can see that politics is all about the maintenance of an individual's living community, whatever size one may consider that community to be. While the size of change may influence notions of collectivism versus individualism, the etymological definition of politics alone leaves us open to interpretation of what actions are to be done. When most people think of politics, however, in today's world, they are particularly referring to government affairs, political actions. May that be elections, voting, government office positions, debates, campaigning, all for the effects in the world that people desire. May that be in introducing, changing, or eradicating a service, a tax, economic change, healthcare, maybe even a war. On the surface, this doesn't sound too controversial, but when we look into the world, there seems to be so much controversy over these issues and who will deliver what other people want. It has led into turmoil across the countries of the world where the media may aggregate problems, share false stories, or push narratives and people feel like their position is the most justified or that other positions are wrong or straight out ridiculous. But this is only the beginning, and while it may be ugly enough for many people to outright ignore politics while others then take advantage of it, this is not the only ugliness I speak of, and my own views on how the world should operate are of no relevance here. I am afraid that the acts of politics that we use on a day-to-day basis can be within themselves harmful to our progression and evolution as a human species. If you have an open mind, so we shall evaluate what I mean by this. The first thing we must take note of is something called democide, which is the top cause of unnatural death. It is known as death by government. Take World War II, for example. The reason why it is important to first know about this is because the very same or similar political actions and processes that takes place in today's world is what has allowed such a catastrophe, which isn't so far in the past if we consider how fast it feels sometimes for time to fly by. Let us evaluate these actions. The idea of voting or electing people into positions of political power. Ask yourself, are people being the change or looking for others to be the change for them? Are people begging for their own freedom? Is that how freedom operates? If you depend upon others for your own freedom, are you really free? We must know that it isn't just the people who vote who are begging. The people running for office are also begging. They are begging for the people that vote to vote for them, in order for change to be done, if it ever does get done. Do leaders become leaders merely by their identity, their convincing words or looks, their begging for votes? Think of all the constant advertisements for political campaigns. How much material, time, and money is wasted just to lead up to the process for change that is for the most part unknown as to if and how change actually will occur. We also know that the law is capable of changing, so something can be perfectly good one day and bad the next, because some piece of paper, some politician's opinion says so. We get stuck in a cycle of this politician, this law, that law. Then we have so many or too few. Humanity seems lost. An expectation for further expectations, a begging for further begging. Sounds kinda ugly if you ask me, and people in politics will say it is merely part of the process, a necessary evil. Well, I beg to differ. I would not like to limit change to just these actions. However, to evaluate further, we see there is barely any emphasis on education in political action. For the most part, what takes place is slander, attacks from one person to another, as if it's a sports boxing match of one side against the other, where people get so wrapped up on their own side, or they get so sick that the world is not changing the way they want to see it changed, people may even resort to violence at times. If education is used, it isn't likely timeless or universal knowledge, or knowledge that helps inform the populace to self-govern. It usually is used against another political opponent or for their own political campaign or agenda. There is barely any emphasis on personal change within politics. People can have trauma and end up having even more trauma after experiencing the fear tactics used in campaigns, or all their built-up hope crashing down on them. People don't know how to define a simple right. What is freedom? What is slavery? What is democide? What is politics? What is property? What is ownership? And how all these concepts relate to one another. For what philosophy people know, it is only what is taught to them of other philosophers or those people in politics who claim to know about these subjects. Are we learning how to think or what to think? Is change limited to what is simply scribbled onto a piece of paper? Of some one person over many hundreds to thousands or millions of people? What if they did not consent? Is this world only about you and what you want? Should any one person decide for anyone else how everything should work? In politics, people tend to know that politicians lie, that they will do anything to get people's vote, and even saying that alone will gain people's trust. If it's not begging, it's deceiving. It's complaining, or it's ego boasting. It's bandwagon. Do people really like politics, or do they like games? People see no other alternative to creating change, and their faith in history, which they also hope they can trust for their own country, will also attempt to validate that method of political change. They say, well, that won't happen again, we won't let it. They say, well, we learned slavery is wrong, so it's gone. They say, oh, it's illegal, so it must be immoral. They say, we just need the right people in office, or the right law enacted. The right person, or the right law, according to who? They say, what we decide, the collective, the majority, or the king, the queen, the magistrate, the legislature. So you want one person's opinion ruling over another person's opinion. They say, well, it's not an opinion. Well, maybe it's not. But not everyone will agree, so how will your opinion be enforced? The only answer to this is the same across the board for all political action at the end of the day: by violence. Even who people may call, quote, the greatest writer of all time, Leo Tolstoy, understood this. Every law is an opinion of man, a bunch of scribbles on paper backed by violence, enforced by other people who are seen to have more rights than other people, rights that they do not have by nature, and every politician is claiming to dictate what is right and wrong for people to do, to dictate what people's rights are. Should someone's opinion change what is right and wrong? If people say slavery is good, and many people say slavery is good, does that make slavery actually good? In reality? Has nature given any one of us superpowers that others do not have? If we all are prone to faults and we all are not perfect, we all realize that we all need to help each other in this life, what makes one or few fit to rule over everyone else by the threat of violence if they don't comply? Are we willing to violate the rights of the individual in order for the collective or quote-unquote greater good? Are we willing to go to war overseas against some people we don't know because we are told to do so or are convinced in having to do so? What lives are taken mistakenly in this process? This looks ugly. When people don't think for themselves or use their own conscience as to what is right and wrong, and instead follow orders, what can happen? Wrongdoing takes place. It goes excused and ignored. Then people get upset that the world isn't changing for the better, rightfully in many regards, but do they realize it can be the everyday person shutting down their own decision-making of right versus wrong and acquiring their own knowledge to instead do what they are told? People keep blaming those who give the orders when they are among those who actually carry out those orders. Think of the golden rule: do unto others what you would want done unto them. What if you are a soldier who believes in some politician and one day they decide it is necessary for the greater good to bring your family to a concentration camp? How would it feel? What if you are living your own life and someday some soldiers from a foreign country come by and destroy all your property because their politicians said to do so? How would it feel? These are not extreme examples. These have happened and in different places of the world is still happening. Look at the identity that politicians create for themselves, their celebrity-like position in society, how people adore them and cry about them, all the emotions people have gone through in this process for thousands of years. Where has it got us? Any better? Or has it been a perpetual cycle like the Tytler cycle has described? Dishonesty keeps people in ignorance, what is known as the root to all evil, and the image alone, the titles and positions alone. You must ask yourself, is this any honest of nature? Are these processes natural? Perhaps it is natural to socialize, to create change, but through this specific process of elections and inaugurations and involuntarily making people accept the ruler? They say, quote, they work for us, we hire them. Then how about you try taxing your politicians? Can you? Humanity can do way better than this, universally and timelessly, for all people past all divisions. Is politics not clearly a mass division? They say, your vote is your voice. Again, is this really honest? Is this not actually just one voice imposed on another with violence? Having no choice after supposedly having a choice. God forbid some huge event happens in the country, it'll only be used for another political agenda, and everything soon becomes about politics. Morality has to always pass through this man-made dictated filter. If rights come from nature, we're all born with the same rights, then why in the case of government do we create a class system where certain people have more rights than others? By one local politician running for the people, they justify the process that people can turn a wrong into a right, that they can grant or revoke other people's rights, that pieces of paper must be worshipped, and that political campaigning is the only action, that the slander, advertisements, collectivism, lack of education, convincing, begging, agitation, dishonesty, identity, division, justification, and ego is all necessary. Not all this ugliness necessarily dictates that political action should not persist at all. It is the inherent problems within political action that should most alarm people, for which the ugliness is only the symptom thereof. The inherent problem is statism, the belief that someone has the imagined right to rule. If political action was voluntary change, done purely out of influencing others non-violently, showing by example and not power or manipulation, these filthy processes would not exist. Politics would no longer be so ugly, statism, or what is commonly called the most dangerous religion, would not exist. If you want restrictions on other people's freedoms, you want slavery. If you want no restrictions on other people's freedoms, you want to end slavery. You are an abolitionist, as I would say. By being an abolitionist, as I call myself, you don't want to add anything new to society. You recognize our rights inherent to our nature, and you want to end what compromises our nature. You want to defend our nature and therefore learn and educate, because only we can truly free ourselves. It is our rights we must exercise for ourselves. You want the best ideas to rise to the top accordingly to people's needs, but no violence for compliance is necessary. Do good ideas require violence? That doesn't sound so good to me. If you wish to dispute my points, I encourage you read The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. A less detailed read would be The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. The solutions are simple. Freedom is what provides its abundance, not just one or a few. We attain and maintain it through moral power and action as the only political action. Universal and timeless education. The abolitionists who ended chattel slavery of the past used no politics. It gave them no aid. They spoke of this exact action which did give them aid, and what we can absolutely do today without any of the ugliness. Shall any ugliness come of this, it will be from those still engaged in politics. For morality seeks no conflict, it cares for all people, and this is beauty. We can start educative newspapers, video content, internet threads, memes, conferences, speaking events, radio appearances, neighborhood connections, going to different meetings or assemblies, starting non-political campaigns of putting up signs and sharing materials, integrating with movements and developing action plans or opportunities. For long, the media, both independent and mainstream, have had the chance to utilize a great platform, yet the actions often remain limited to the news, including the news of politics. They too have a responsibility to help change the world. Everyone wants to shun out those with different viewpoints than their own, I like to say that everyone's viewpoint is essential, so long as it is again not backed by violence. People have become conditioned to think that freedom is chaos when it is solutions abundant. People have also become conditioned to think that government is society, as if society would not work without government, like saying society would not work without slavery. These are just man-made institutions that, as the test of time has shown, only results in chaos. How long will it take for humanity to learn? And I don't expect you to understand this immediately. The truth speaks through time what works. Every attempt at limiting violence still legitimizes violence, and hence it always grows. The monopoly on violence, which is every proceeding by government, cannot prevent violence. No wrong can be justified, no evil is necessary. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it wrong or evil, or see other solutions. Everything in nature is self-organizing, and so are we when we give ourselves the chance and don't abdicate the responsibility to be the change ourselves. Re-watch this video if you must, or look into the many resources provided alongside. Change does not require violence. If you think it does, continue your filthy game of politics. I'm not in.
What you think?
I think it's awesome.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. Great job, bro. So tell everybody, hold on, tell everybody.
John.
If you want to share your screen
you're
or whatever.
really quiet, bro. Can you turn up your mic?
Is it up now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like barely, it's like you're standing in the back of the room sort of thing.
Oh. How about now? How about now?
Yeah, it's better, but still not enough.
Yeah, so with that being said, you know, like, that was a great presentation, Corey. Your editing skills they've gotten, like, your content, your editing skills, your delivery, great stuff, man. Great stuff. So I'm so impressed, man. Like, it blows me away, like, the level of work and effort you put into this. I notice you, on average, stream 2 videos a day. In the effort, or more. There's been more. I've seen that. But I see that you're very dedicated to getting the message out there. And I really appreciate you giving me a hand. I did switch that over to politics. I don't know if it's going to make any difference, but...
Yes, it will. I saw new viewers come in. I saw the numbers start to go up.
All right, so you see that I have at the bottom of the screen, Corey.
Yeah, I've kept inviting people. Shush, Corey. Don't let him know it's me. Don't burst his bubble.
John, I also sent you a link for Nightbot on your personal message on Discord. I sent you a link. I want you to invite that bot to your channel because that bot will allow you to do more and also allow me to do more as well.
Sure.
I couldn't switch the section for you because you didn't have Nightbot. Well, but when you have Nightbot, I can switch the section for you.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that, but in the meantime, I'm going to put up the title card here because, you know, like, I'm encouraging people to get involved. You know what I mean? I'm encouraging people to join the discussion. So we have this, and then we have this.
Hey, man.
You know, so.
Well, you encouraged me, and I live how many miles away?
Right. And this is, you know, this is what we're doing. We're reaching out to, you know, we're reaching out to the others, you know, because this is what's important, you know, like that. Yes. We have this open forum and that we can discuss these issues, you know.
Yeah, but do you know what else is important?
What's that?
Knowing people locally.
Knowing people locally. That is very important. Absolutely.
I don't care whether you do it through a church or you volunteer at some, like, community garden or whatever. You need to actually start meeting the locals. If things go bad, they know you.
Right.
I'm gonna go, John. But thanks. It's been nice hanging out.
Yeah, man. I appreciate your work, Corey, as usual. And again, I appreciate you in my life today. Thanks, man. And for those that don't know, me and Corey, we game. Tell him, Corey, what do we game? Do we game? A little bit.
Yeah, we do.
It's a good release.
Why'd your volume go all quiet?
All right, so let me switch that over.
Thank you, man. Peace.
And how
Thank
do
you,
you
DK.
I'll talk to you, Corey. So, and then there was 2, right? And then there was 2. So give me a second here. Let me go ahead and throw on this other, because he's got me installing night bots. I'm trying to do things on the fly here, so.
Yeah, Nightbot works on DLive. If you're streaming on DLive, Nightbot works on there too. There's heaps of extra commands on there. Because DLive was where I first started streaming, but they screwed me completely.
Who was that?
DLive, like the whole company.
Yeah, so I was actually using DLive at one point, but not anymore.
Yeah, that's where I started streaming full time. But yeah, they screwed me.
Yeah, so let me see here. Hold on. I want to make sure I get this up here. Let's go with
But yeah, Nightbot works well there. What I'm saying is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so this is the part 2 to the I showed part 1 already. This is part 2. So I'm going to let this play so that people can do something while I'm setting up the bots.
Okay.
So give us a second here. Let's transition into this.
In order to get the contract,
All
we
right.
need to hide the code.
I'll mute
This is
myself
for
here,
flipping vote
and
in
I'll
South
turn
Florida.
my own
It's the same
microphone back
company
on.
who, as Speaker of the House in 2000, claimed that no matter what, the Supreme Court said he was going to give the electors to George W. Bush.
Yes, that's the guy.
The same Tom Feeney, as I understand it, who was Jeb Bush's running mate for governor back in '94, when Jeb lost, by the way.
Yes.
So Feeney did him no good.
Did him no good that time.
That time.
There you
You're
go.
right.
And so Feeney was basically feeding with contracts and saying, can we do this? Can we do that?
Okay.
I was kind of the technology supervisor. If we could do it, then I would tell them, and we could run whatever, little test pattern they wanted for us.
Jeb was already governor at that point?
Yes.
2000? Okay.
Jeb was already governor.
When I was contacted by Clint, I said, well, would you be willing to put this into an affidavit, a sworn affidavit? Since a lot of this stuff off the bat is still difficult to prove, especially that nugget of that meeting with Tom Feeney and the vote rigging software is still largely a he said story.
On December 6, 2004, Clint Curtis filed an affidavit with Congress alleging that one of their members, Tom Feeney of Florida, had asked him to create vote rigging software.
He asked you to design a code to rig an election.
Yes.
While he was Speaker of the Florida House.
Yes. When we filed the affidavit in December, the dog turned up shot the very day we filed that. So I don't know if it's a threat or more of just we can do whatever we want whenever we want it kind of a statement.
The day that I broke the story, Clint Curtis's affidavit, I had been awake for 3 days straight. I was so creeped out by this entire thing that I couldn't sleep. The same day that I broke that story, I got a phone call from Clint in D.C. saying that his dog had been shot. And I thought, oh man, he's, Clint's gonna, with this kind of crap happening, he's not gonna want to continue, telling this story. He said to me, no, you're damn right, we're gonna keep reporting this story, and we're gonna keep, I'm still gonna continue talking about what I've learned.
Yang's attorney quickly released a statement claiming that Mr. Curtis's allegations are categorically false, and that Clint Curtis is a disgruntled former employee.
I have heard, Clint, that you were a disgruntled employee of Yang, and that's why you've been making these claims.
That was their original excuse until I produced, and I think it's got on your blog, isn't it? This card, which they gave me, which said, come back anytime, the door will always be open.
This is what Yang said to you.
Well, the actual owner, Mrs. Yang, wrote that.
I'm wondering if Mrs. Yang is available. This is Brad Friedman calling. Any idea when she might be available? I'm working on a story on Deadline. Is there a spokesperson for the company that might be able to answer some questions? Hello? This meeting with Tom Feeney, where he asked you to create what is essentially vote rigging software for
Correct.
electronic voting machines. Tom Feeney is in the room. You're in the room. Mrs. Yang, the CEO, is in the room. Anybody else in the room?
Mike Cohen.
Who is Mike Cohen?
Mike Cohen was the executive secretary for Mrs. Yang. He was basically the note taker.
Mike Cohen, the executive secretary for Mrs. Yang, whom Curtis claimed was at the vote rigging meeting, told a reporter from Wired that the meeting never took place.
And I called him and I said, "Hi, this is Brad Friedman." Brad, yes, Mike Cohen, I wanted to ask you a couple. Brad, I don't want to be impolite. I'm going to hang up the phone, but I don't want to. But Mike, I'm wondering, can you, Brad? And he just would not let me get out a word. And then he hung up. And I guess he doesn't want to speak to me.
If they really tried to put out a program to do vote fraud,
right?
The minute they checked the source code, they'd see it.
It sounds like you presumed that these counties, these states, and so forth would examine the source code before it was actually used in an election, correct?
Well, yeah.
But they do not, correct?
That's what I've heard.
What did you think when you heard that?
That I should tell people what's going on. What he wanted was a program that would flip the vote. And this is what I produced, basically. It looks like that.
You've compiled essentially a prototype program to
Yes.
show how somebody could, in fact, if they wanted to, use the touchscreen software to flip the vote.
Correct.
Is this the actual program that you built for them?
No.
So
the
you don't
NASA
have the
contract.
actual software that
no,
you
I just
wrote for them?
rewrote a duplicate of it because it's real simple. It's like 100 lines of code. This is a little garbage program that I wrote for Feeney. You don't see the actual vote count. So you walk up. Who do you want to vote for here? Kerry is winning a little bit, okay? You come in, you vote for Bush, you vote for Bush, you vote for Bush. Always adds by one. Vote for Kerry, vote for Kerry. So the people that are going to be validating this machine can stand there all day long and vote for somebody, and it will be right every time. Pretty simple, okay? But the guy could walk up here, and if he hits the right buttons, he can flip the vote that easy. So the whole vote total has changed. You could have 20 people standing behind his back while he's poking at a screen, and you never saw it.
What's the percentage that you worked out for
51-49.
51 to 49.
Because it's under the recall. Close enough, you don't have a recall. When I actually wrote it, it wasn't Bush Kerry, it was cat and dog, I think, or something like that.
I think the voting should still be done on paper because it's way too easy to manipulate computers.
Jesse Jackson and I were on a speakerphone with Mr. Kerry, and we told him, Mr. Kerry didn't really respond to what we said about Ohio, but he did point out that the OptiScans and wherever they used them in New Mexico, he lost regardless of the Democratic and Republican registration. He said, it sure seems like I lost everywhere they used those machines.
Why didn't you leave the building with a copy of the source code to prove what had gone on?
Because it's a secured site. You don't do that. We have government contracts, and nothing is supposed to leave the building.
It is more difficult to get into the Yang offices than it is to get into a government office.
Really?
Yes. I was an employee of the Department of Transportation.
Florida Department of
The
Transportation.
Florida Department of Transportation. The department entered into a contract with Yang, I believe, in January of '99. I had known Mrs. Yang since approximately '94, '95.
Did she ever tell you how she came to hire Tom Feeney?
She indicated to me that now that he was in politics, that they had hired Mr. Feeney as their general counsel.
Did that strike you as odd that a company doing business with the state would hire the incoming Speaker of the House?
It struck me as odd that an individual like this, in addition to being general counsel for a vendor, would also be the registered paid lobbyist for a vendor. And Mr. Feeney was both for Yang Enterprises. His political campaign offices were in the same building where she had her offices and the building in which she owned. something was slowly going wrong. The invoices from Yang began to escalate every time I would reject an invoice and say, no, this is not what we agreed to. Here was your authorization. That's all you can bill. We'll have to discuss this with our general counsel, Mr. Tom Feeney. He's the Speaker of the House. So they began using his name, trying to intimidate me.
Did you have enough of a concern about it to go to anybody and say, hey, this doesn't seem right?
Since he was Speaker of the House and a member of the House, I'll call the House Ethics Committee and said that, you know, I was having a problem and there may well be political influence, and how did they handle these things? And they told me that Mr. Feeney was the person who would review it and either accept it for review or throw it out as being not worthwhile.
Wait a minute.
And I said, I'm complaining about Mr. Feeney. And they said, we don't have any way to bypass him. The way our committee is set up, Mr. Feeney is the one who will evaluate your complaint. For one of our elected politicians to use the power of his office for self, that's not supposed to happen.
Prior to getting introduced to Feeney,
right,
they just seemed odd. Things were odd. You know, they had people sneaking up the back stairs, and they were downloading information from NASA that didn't seem like they should be doing that. You know, things like this.
They had a NASA contract, correct?
Yes.
And they have to have sort of top secret clearance to have this
I would
contract?
assume they must have some clearance, because, you know.
Did Feeney help them get that contract?
I think people get it. I think people are getting it a little bit. What do you think? In your opinion there, sir? No? They need more? I think they need more. What do you think? So, let's slide that over. Let's see. Let's see if we can find some more for these. Yeah. I don't know I don't know what the threshold is for this. Like, there's a threshold. Like, how much can someone take of the same regurgitated crap in so many different ways? But, you know, we'll keep at it. You know, we'll keep at it. There's a part 3 to this. Right? Is there a part 3, or is it just a part 1 and 2? There was 1. We saw that. Right? There was 2. We saw that.
What you would need.
Right.
And
was there a 3? Yeah, I thought there was.
Don't know, but he has connections.
So we're gonna play that. Here we go.
The NASA, his wife works there.
So you don't know if Feeney was instrumental in helping them get that particular contract. Okay, you said that they were downloading stuff from NASA software?
Yang Enterprises was bringing gigabytes of databases from NASA, and then they were handing it over to Henry Nee.
Who is Henry Nee?
Henry Nee was a little skinny Chinese guy that worked there, and he wasn't legal.
He was an illegal alien?
Mm-hmm.
Even while I was looking into the story, we then discovered the matter of Henry Nee.
They finally arrested him for sending missile chips to China.
Henry Nee was in fact arrested after a 4-year sting last year on 3 counts of attempting to send Hellfire anti-tank missile chips to China.
And he admitted to doing it 20 times.
And he pled guilty to one of the charges and admitted it was a slow year. So they only did this 10 to 20 times. And when he was sentenced in October of 2004, he was sentenced to 3 years probation and a $100 fine.
Pretty weak, huh? He seems to think he's pretty much promised a green card as soon as he's done with his probation.
To this day, Mrs. Yang, I understand, says that Henry Nee never worked at Yang Enterprises, Inc.
It's one of the reasons you can prove that he was working on the project was the fact that they actually billed for him.
They're sending timesheets to you saying, here's who worked on what and how many hours they worked and so forth.
Correct.
One of them was Clint Curtis.
One of them was Clint Curtis.
One of them was Henry Nee.
One of them was Henry Nee.
She was regularly shipping information off to her brother in China.
She, Mrs. Yang,
Mrs.
the
Yang.
CEO. Okay.
Right.
Who was her brother in China?
Her brother, according to her, she got drunk one time and she was happy, and she was telling me about her brother had been thrown out of the country for spying. Of course, she said he didn't do it, but he'd been tossed for spying, and then she's doing all this correspondence. She said it was video games, and I asked her, should you really be shipping all this stuff to your brother, since we have NASA contracts, and the government thinks he's a spy?
I claim now.
If you got every environmental group, every group you have, just say, we're not going to do anything else. We're going to make the vote system, and we're going to fix it. And you could fix it in 2 months. But you've got to abandon everything else for those months and not save the whales and not do anything else, but fix that problem. Because if you don't fix that problem, nothing else you want to do will matter.
Thank you. I am pleased to follow that liar, Clint Curtis. In case anybody missed it this morning, Clint Curtis passed a lie detector test, and it ran in this morning's St. Petersburg Times.
Did you have any concerns about taking the polygraph test?
No. I've been trying to for quite a while, but the opportunity came along for someone who is supposedly, top of the line.
Right.
Big career with Florida Department of Law Enforcement, so it's a good time to do it.
What'd they ask you? Do you remember?
They basically were trying to validate the affidavit that I gave to Congress.
The lie detector test that Clint Curtis took was administered by Tim Robinson, who used to be the chief polygraph examiner for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Clint Curtis was found to be truthful in all of his responses. Congressman Tom Feeney has yet to take his polygraph exam.
You have a serious problem because you want your candidate to win, and you don't want the election to be rigged. But as it stands right now, we don't have a clue as to whether or not our elections will be rigged.
Hari Hursty was invited by election supervisor Ion Sancho to test the Diebold AccuVote optical scan voting machine in Leon County, Florida.
Clint Curtis said that the program was never used. As far as he knows, it was a proof of concept. Is there anything about his concept then?
From the touchscreen systems, all touchscreen systems out there, it's impossible for me to say if actually you can do it with all the machines. Definitely you can do it with the Diebold, both Diebold platforms.
And the presumption here being that nobody gets to look at the source code.
Well, in Diebold, I would say I would build it so that you cannot find it from source code even if somebody looks it. And that's, I wouldn't go to that area.
Can it be built? Well, I don't know if he's a good enough programmer to do it. Could it be done that you can actually hide it in the source code so that it cannot be done?
Yeah.
Found?
Yeah.
Black box voting facilitated a number of hacking demonstrations. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney was able to witness the vulnerability of a Diebold central tabulator firsthand.
With 3 clicks of a mouse and some instructions from those who know how to do this, I was able to hack into the Microsoft program that tabulates the votes, change the election vote, and then exit from the program. Now, I saw it, I did it, and so then that means that I kind of know that it can be done.
Clint called me and told me that he had resigned from Yang.
Why were you resigning in the first place?
Because they're crooked. And if they're ethically challenged, I don't want to be there.
I gave him a listing of firms that we did business with and told him if he were made available through an existing contract, I would then be able to contract with him.
So you went to the Florida Department of Transportation after you left Yang Enterprises,
Yes.
correct? Yang had like an $8 million contract, right, with FDOT?
They found out I was working there, and they just went ballistic. They started calling all over the place, and I needed to call them as soon as possible.
Who called you?
Mike Cohen.
So Yang is now calling you after you went to work at FDOT?
Right. They were all in the room talking. I could hear them mumbling in the background, and Mike was basically the voice coming out of this.
Why are they calling you?
They want to offer me big money to come back at first, And then when it got to the point of, well, Feeney will find you a different job and we'll give you this $1 million anyway, it's like, why?
They offered you $1 million.
They offered me $1 million just to leave Tallahassee.
And why didn't you take that?
Because that's not right.
Why isn't it right? Is there anything illegal about?
Well, if you're offering,
they're offering you a job, it's $1 million. How much were you making when you worked at Yang before?
$60,000.
$60,000.
Yeah.
And now they're offering you $1 million.
Now offering $1 million. That's quite a price increase if there's not something illegal going on.
Are they still looking for someone? Because I could
Yang?
use some.
Oh,
yeah.
could you use some
Yeah,
money?
I mean, if it's $1 million,
you don't have to show up for the job.
Remarkable.
I'll leave Tallahassee. It's not a problem. He told you and others
in the office
about this phone call he received from Yang where they offered him.
It was an ungodly amount of money.
What did he tell you the offer was for?
To leave DOT and keep his mouth shut.
So I start talking to Mike
Cohen,
personally, Mike Cohen,
the executive
on the phone
secretary.
at night, and trying to find out what's going on, And basically he told me what was going on, They had illegal aliens working there, Henry was a spy. They were ripping off FDOT, the whole routine. And it turned from, bribes to, we're going to have Ralph come kill you kind of stuff.
Whoa, what do you mean we're going to have Ralph come kill you?
Ralph's a sniper. Ralph was a sniper.
Now, this
in
is
Vietnam.
Ralph Thompson, the guy you said was the VP at one time?
The VP, right.
Mike Cohen says to you that Ralph is going to come kill you?
Well, actually he says Ralph used to be a sniper. You'd never even see it coming. But, Ralph is now 60. You might have been a great sniper when you're 20.
Okay.
But, crawling through the woods when you're 60 is not quite the same.
Don't taunt Ralph.
Don't taunt Ralph?
No, this is being taped. Yeah. You got enough problems. Certainly you go to the police. Somebody has just told you.
So then I go through the books. I have to have some sort of evidence because otherwise.
What books do you go through? What are you talking about?
Well, since I worked in the same department where the billing had come in, I started looking through the contract, and they had been overbilling for me for years. And they were billing like 40 hours a week for forever.
Were you working 40 hours a week on the Yang contract?
Not at all, not even close. Working on the NASA contracts and the ExxonMobil contracts.
But you were working 40-hour weeks, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
And all of that time was being billed to Yang, even though you were not doing all your work for FDOT?
They even billed for a couple of days after I had left them and was working at FDOT. So I told Mavis Georgalis, and she said, well, we need to go to the Attorney General's office.
You and Mavis Georgalis together?
Yes. She went up with me and told the story, and I told my part of it.
And the Inspector General was whom?
Ray Lemmy.
What complaints were made with Raymond Lemmy?
Improper invoicing on the part of Yang Enterprises. Improper political influence.
Because of
coming
Tom.
down from Tom Feeney.
I see.
Through my immediate supervisor, Nelson Hill, on behalf of Yang Enterprises, and the use by Yang Enterprises of unauthorized.
There is a part 4, but I'm not going to play it. I think you guys get the idea of just how deep-rooted it all is. You could do your own research and homework on that. But this is an open forum. I invite anyone to come on here and have this discussion with me. This is the way you can get in. We're available for video and voice, both Telegram and Discord. We're also available through chat on Twitch, Facebooks, YouTubes. I'm trying to keep up with it all. I'm only here by myself, so. But I do have a great community around me. I'm glad that people have been chiming in and giving their 2 cents on things. I think it's real important. I got something else I'm going to bring up right now. I'm going to show you. Hold on. So make sure we do this right. So give me a second. Bear with me.
Now let's take a look at the role of the Rothschild family, the family said to be the wealthiest in the world.
Money is the god of our time, and Rothschild is his prophet. Heinrich Heine. The mythology surrounding the Rothschilds' wealth and power is 2 centuries old. The resulting mythology has proved almost as long-lived as the firm of N.M. Rothschild & Sons itself. Ever since the second decade of the 19th century, there has been speculation about the origins and extent of the family's wealth, about their political influence, not only in the 5 countries where there were Rothschild houses, but throughout the world, about their Judaism. The 5 Rothschild houses constitute an early version of what later became known as the multinational. Perhaps the most important point to grasp about this multinational partnership is that for most of the century between 1815 and 1914, it was easily the biggest bank in the world. Strictly in terms of their combined capital, the Rothschilds were in a league of their own until, at the earliest, the 1880s. The 20th century has no equivalent. Because they were so rich, the Rothschilds could plainly claim a material equivalence with the European aristocracy. They relished the sense that they were sans pareil. In this sense, phrases like kings of the Jews, which contemporaries applied to them, contained an important element of truth. That was exactly the way the Rothschilds saw and conducted themselves. There are no fewer than 153 species or subspecies of insect which bear the name Rothschild, as well as 58 birds, 18 mammals, and 14 plants, including a rare slipper orchid, Paphiopedilum rothschildianum, to say nothing of 3 fish, 3 spiders, and 2 reptiles. The family's almost equally recurrent enthusiasm for the pleasures of the table has also bestowed the name on a soufflé and a savory, prawns, cognac, and Gruyere on toast. There are towns and numerous streets named after members of the family in Israel, Rothschild-owned vineyards at Mouton and Lafitte whose wines are drunk the world over, numerous Rothschild-built houses from the Vale of Aylesbury to the Riviera, and there is even a Rothschild island in the Antarctic. At the same time, the Rothschilds energetically pursued and acquired decorations, titles, and other honors, securing the ultimate prize, an English peerage, in 1885. The third generation also threw themselves into hunting and horse racing, those quintessentially aristocratic pastimes. They also extended their patronage to include writers, Benjamin Disraeli, Honoré de Balzac, and Heinrich Heine, musicians, notably Frédéric Chopin and Gioacchino Rossini, as well as architects and artists. In more ways than one, they were the 19th century's Medicis. From the very earliest days, the Rothschilds appreciated the importance of proximity to politicians, the men who determined not only the extent of budget deficits, but also the domestic and foreign policies which so influenced the financial markets. And politicians soon came to realize the importance of proximity to the Rothschilds, who at times seemed indispensable to the solvency of the states the politicians governed, and who could always be relied upon to provide up-to-the-minute political news. When the former de Rothschild Frères director, Georges Pompidou, became prime minister in April 1962, and later president in 1969, Le Canard Enchaîné commented simply, RF equals République Française equals Rothschild Frères. Similar echoes can be found in the British press, too. Inferences were sometimes drawn in the 1980s from the fact that a number of conservative politicians had worked for N.M. Rothschild & Sons Limited, either before or after their political careers, at a time when the firm was handling a number of important privatizations. In the 1880s and 1890s, their advice on imperial matters was sought by both the Marquis of Salisbury and the Earl of Rosebery, Gladstone's successor as Liberal Prime Minister. Indeed, Rosebery was married to a Rothschild, Meyer's daughter, Hannah. Rothschild influence extended to royalty as well. It is extraordinary to find that the family's interests in the financial affairs of King George IV predated his accession to the throne by as much as 15 years. How did Meyer Amschel, then the father of an obscure Manchester textile merchant, come to acquire a bill on the Prince Regent? The likeliest answer is that he bought it from the Elector of Hesse Castle, who had made a number of loans to the sons of George III in the 1790s. 10 years later, with Nathan firmly established as a banker in London, the sons of Meyer Amschel turned to these other royal debts with the intention of making Nathan, in Amschel's somewhat old-fashioned phrase, court banker in England. Nor was George IV the only member of the British royal family to whom Nathan lent money in the 1820s. In 1824, for example, he lent £10,000 to the Duke of York, as well as giving him 100 complimentary shares in the Alliance Assurance Company. The Rothschilds also looked ahead to the next generation. In 1816, the only child of the Prince Regent, Princess Charlotte, was betrothed to a minor German prince, Leopold of Saxe-Coburg, the youngest son of Duke Francis Frederick. The brothers at once recognized Leopold's potential importance. Not for nothing did one Rothschild writer of the 1840s point out the similarity between the House of Rothschild and the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, those two extended German families which were to rise from obscurity to glory in the course of the 19th century. Indeed, theirs was to be an almost symbiotic relationship. The 3.5 million gulden lent to the Saxe-Coburgs by the Frankfurt House between 1837 and 1842 was only one aspect of the connection. Of greater importance was the support which the Rothschilds gave to those members of the family who left Coburg in search of new thrones elsewhere. Not that the Rothschilds lost interest in the question of the British succession following Princess Charlotte's death. When the Prince Regent's brother, the Duke of Kent, set off for Germany to marry Victoria of Saxe-Coburg, he took with him a letter of credit on the Frankfurt Rothschilds. When the marriage produced a daughter, Victoria, who at once became next in line to the throne, Nathan hastened to offer the proud father financial advice and his exclusive messenger service. Nathan's sons continued to act as the Duchess's banker after the Duke's death, relaying money to her brother Ferdinand of Saxe-Coburg. These tenuous links were enhanced by careful cultivation of Leopold of Saxe-Coburg, who later became King Leopold I of the Belgians. Nor was his nephew Albert above turning to the Rothschilds for financial assistance after he became Queen Victoria's prince consort. In turn, Victoria and Albert's eldest son was on friendly terms with many members of the family before and after he succeeded his mother as Edward VII. The list of Victorian politicians who were close to the Rothschilds is a long one. Lionel's campaign for admission to the House of Commons in the late 1840s and 1850s enjoyed support from Whigs like Lord John Russell and Peelites like Gladstone, but also protectionist Tories like Disraeli and Lord George Bentinck. They were attracted not only to Disraeli, but also to Lord Randolph Churchill, Joseph Chamberlain, and Arthur Balfour. Even as late as the first decade of the 20th century, the system of partnerships continued to function in such a way that English Rothschilds had a financial stake in the Paris House, and French Rothschilds a stake in the London House. The history of the Rothschilds also helps to illuminate the long-running differences between British, French, and German banking, for the obvious reason that the various Rothschild houses worked in similar, though not identical, ways in each country. In addition to the inevitable web of credits and debits with other firms which arose from these activities, the Rothschilds also offered to a select group of customers, usually royal and aristocratic individuals whom they wished to cultivate, a range of personal banking services, ranging from large personal loans, as in the case of the Austrian Chancellor Prince Metternich, to a first-class private postal service, as in the case of Queen Victoria. And the Rothschilds were also major industrial investors, an aspect of their business which has often been underestimated. When the development of railways raised the possibility of transforming Europe's transport system in the 1830s and 1840s, the Rothschilds were among the leading financial backers of lines, beginning in France, Austria, and Germany. Indeed, by the 1860s, James de Rothschild had built up something like a pan-European railway network, extending northwards from France to Belgium, southwards to Spain, and eastwards to Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and Italy. From an early stage, the Rothschilds also had major mining interests, beginning in the 1830s, with their acquisition of the Spanish mercury mines of Almadén, and expanding dramatically in the 1880s and 1890s, when they invested in mines producing gold, copper, diamonds, rubies, and oil. Like their original financial business, this was an authentically global operation extending from South Africa to Burma, from Montana to Baku. Unlike modern multinationals, however, this was always a family firm, with executive decision-making strictly monopolized by the partners, who, until 1960, were exclusively drawn from the ranks of male Rothschilds. There are numerous apocryphal business maxims attributed to the Rothschilds. For example, to hold a third of one's wealth in securities, a third in real estate, and a third in jewels and artworks. To treat the stock exchange like a cold shower, quick in, quick out. Or to leave the last 10% to someone else. The economic history of capitalism is therefore incomplete until some attempt has been made to explain how the Rothschilds became so phenomenally rich. All 19th century states ran budget deficits, and some almost always did. And it was war and the preparation for war which generally precipitated the biggest increases in expenditure. For it was by lending to governments, or by speculating in existing government bonds, that the Rothschilds made a very large part of their colossal fortune. The answer lies in the way these investments were carried out. Only a few years previously, Meyer-Amschel had been arranging payments of some 620,000 gulden from the Elector to Austria to pay for troops and horses in the 1809 campaign against France. Shortly after Meyer-Amschel's death, his son Amschel was advancing 255,000 gulden to purchase horses for the French army. He simply backed both sides. Such a strategy has obvious attractions, and it was to become a frequent Rothschild gambit in the decades ahead. Amschel was only half joking when he wrote, urging Solomon, "Do your stuff. Make the Frankfurt house richer by 1,000,000 francs, the Paris house richer by 1,000,000 louis d'or, and the London house richer by 1,000,000 pounds, and you'll be awarded the Order of the Grande Armée." Such transactions probably accounted for the lion's share of the profits the Rothschilds made in this decisive period. In June 1814, Harris listed the payments they had so far made to Prussia, Austria, the French king, and the British army. Including money that had not yet been dispersed, the total was 12.6 million francs, and more was to come. By now, the markets were tending to follow the Rothschild lead. As Karl noted, "When we buy, everybody buys." This reflected the widespread belief that the Rothschilds were acting on behalf of the English government, and that this was being done in order to force the rate of the pound sterling up, and that we succeeded very well in doing so.
But now, let's return to Napoleon, because nothing else in history more aptly demonstrates the ingenuity of the Rothschild family than their control of the British stock market after Waterloo. In 1815, a year after the end of the War of 1812 in America, Napoleon escaped his exile and returned to Paris.
Just as the brothers appeared to be losing the peace, Bonaparte's 100 Days plunged Europe back into war, restoring the financial conditions in which the Rothschilds had hitherto thrived. This time, not only Russia and Prussia, but the previously aloof Austrians found they had little option but to accept payment from the Rothschilds, as did a gaggle of other states, including Saxony, Baden, Württemberg, Bavaria, Saxe-Weimar, Hesse, Denmark, and Sardinia. Altogether, Harris's account with Nathan in 1815 amounted to £9,789,778. In this, the Rothschilds had invaluable accomplices in the Allied powers themselves, who naturally wished to pocket as much as they could before peace was signed and the subsidies ceased. As their father had taught them, the brothers were always careful to make their terms attractive not only to governments, but also to the individual officials with whom they were negotiating. That Nathan profited from the dramatic events of 1815 is central to Rothschild mythology. By obtaining the first news of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, before even the government itself, Nathan was able to make a huge sum of money on the stock exchange.
This is the Waterloo battlefield about 200 miles northeast of Paris, in what today is Belgium. Here Napoleon suffered his final defeat, but not before thousands of French and Englishmen gave their lives on a steamy summer day in July of 1815. The outcome was certainly in doubt. In fact, had Napoleon attacked a few hours earlier, he would probably have won the battle. Rothschild stationed a trusted agent, a man named Rothworth, on the north side of the battlefield, closer to the English Channel. Once the battle had been decided, Rothworth took off for the Channel. He delivered the news to Nathan Rothschild a full 24 hours before Wellington's own courier. If Wellington had been defeated and Napoleon was loose on the continent again, Britain's financial situation would become grave indeed.
Too late, Mr. Rothschild. You backed the wrong horse this time. Rothschild, you've lost your luck. Look at Rothschild. You'd think he was selling apples instead of government bonds. So now it's 53. All right. Keep on selling that delivered stuff. You're creating something like a panic on the exchange, sir. I know.
Other nervous investors saw that Rothschild was selling. It could only mean one thing. Napoleon must have won, Wellington must have lost. The market plummeted. Soon everyone was selling their consols, their British government bonds, and prices dropped sharply. But then, Rothschild started secretly buying up the consols through his agents for only a fraction of their worth hours before.
Yes, fine. Have you had any news? What do you think about this rumor? I don't listen to rumors, Mr. Baring. You hear what they say? Wellington defeated. You might tell me what you're going to do. I have no objection to all London knowing what I'm going to do. I'm fine.
What's even more interesting about this story is that some authors claim that the day after the Battle of Waterloo, in a matter of hours, Nathan Rothschild came to dominate not only the bond market, but the Bank of England as well. Whether or not the Rothschild family seized control of the Bank of England, the first privately owned central bank in a major European nation and the wealthiest, one thing is certain. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds were the richest family in the world, bar none. They dominated the new government bond markets and branched into other banks and industrial concerns.
Like France and Britain, the Central and East European states emerged from the war with dire financial problems which could be addressed only with the assistance of foreign capital. As Disraeli later put it in his novel Coningsby, after the exhaustion of a war of 25 years, Europe must require capital to carry on peace. France wanted some, Austria more, Prussia a little, Russia a few millions. Moreover, the policy of the Holy Alliance was bound to create additional financial needs from which the Rothschilds could also profit. For the principal aim of the alliance was to avert a recurrence of the revolutionary epidemic which had caused such upheaval in Europe between 1789 and 1815, if necessary by military intervention. That implied further expenditure. The Rothschilds were notoriously the chief ally of the Holy Alliance. To the German writer Ludwig Werner, they were the nation's worst enemies. They have done more than any to undermine the foundations of freedom, and it is unquestionable that most of the peoples of Europe would by this time be in full possession of liberty if such men as Rothschild did not lend the autocrats the support of their capital. Moreover, the Rothschilds were also, as Werner said, lending money to establish Greece as an independent monarchy, which had been another liberal goal of the 1820s. Indeed, they even appeared to be in a position to influence the decision as to which prince would become the new Greek king. It therefore made more sense to argue that the Rothschilds were beginning to supplant, rather than merely shore up the European monarchies. The first major post-war loan which the brothers succeeded in making was to Prussia, which had ended the Napoleonic period with a debt burden of around $188 million, and continued to run large deficits in 1815, 1816, and 1817. The size of the floating debt reached $20 million by the autumn, and the government began to contemplate raising a loan in London. Banking, the third Lord Rothschild once remarked, consists essentially of facilitating the movement of money from point A, where it is, to point B, where it is needed. All banks have histories, though not all have their histories researched and written. Only the Rothschilds, however, have a mythology. The world's bankers. The Rothschilds are the wonders of modern banking. We see the descendants of Judah, after a persecution of 2,000 years, peering above kings, rising higher than emperors, and holding a whole continent in the hollow of their hands. The Rothschilds govern a Christian world. Not a cabinet moves without their advice. They stretch their hand with equal ease from Petersburg to Vienna, from Vienna to Paris, from Paris to London, from London to Washington. Baron Rothschild, the head of the house, is the true king of Judah, the prince of the captivity, the Messiah so long looked for by this extraordinary people. He holds the keys of peace or war, blessing or cursing. They are the brokers and counselors of the kings of Europe and of the Republican chiefs of America. What more can they desire? Niles Weekly Register, 1835 to 36. Whatever its significance for Prussian politics, the 1818 Prussian loan was without question a watershed in the history of the European capital market, as contemporaries came to recognize. Firstly, the loan was not to be in thaler but in sterling, with the interest payable, half yearly, not in Berlin but in London. Secondly, there was to be a British-style sinking fund to ensure the amortization of the loan. This deliberate anglicization of a foreign loan was a new departure for the international capital market. Now it was much easier to invest in foreign funds, and the fact that throughout the century all foreign government bonds paid higher yields than British consols meant that people did. The Times did not exaggerate when it later described Nathan as the first introducer of foreign loans into Britain. Moreover, the loan was issued not just in London, but also in Frankfurt, Berlin, Hamburg, Amsterdam, and Vienna. In other words, it represented a major step towards the creation of a completely international bond market. In stipulating these conditions, Nathan not only succeeded in making the Prussian loan attractive to British and continental investors, he also established a model for such international bond issues, which would swiftly become standard. In his book, On the Traffic in State Bonds, 1825, the German legal expert Johann Heinrich Bender identified this as one of the Rothschilds' principal contributions to modern economic development. Any owner of government bonds can collect the interest at his convenience in several different places without any effort. Henceforth, an investor could receive the interest on Austrian Metallique, Neapolitan Rent, or any other Rothschild-issued bonds from any of the Rothschild houses. Although the terms of the loan were heavily criticized in Berlin, not least by the bankers there, Humboldt and Rother were impressed. Rother went further. The Rothschild in this country has an incredible influence upon all financial affairs here in London. It is widely stated, and is indeed close to the truth, that he entirely regulates the rate of exchange in the city. His power as a banker is enormous. In an unpublished passage of the Baths of Lucca, Heine sought to analyze the nature of the Rothschilds' power more precisely. Here he acknowledges that in the short term it served to shore up the reactionary regimes. Revolutions are generally triggered off by deficiency of money. By preventing such deficiencies, the Rothschild system may serve to preserve peace in Europe. This system, or rather, Nathan Rothschild, its inventor, is still providing firm foundations for such peace. It does not inhibit one state from making war on another exactly as before, but it does make it difficult for the people to overthrow established authority. Religion is no longer able to guarantee the governments that the people will remain peaceful. The Rothschild system of loans can perform the task much better. It possesses the moral force or power which religion has lost. It can act as a surrogate for religion. Indeed, it is a new religion, and when the old religion finally goes under, it will provide substitutes for its practical blessings. Strangely enough, it is once again the Jews who invented this new religion. As early as 1828, Prince Huttler-Muskau referred to Rothschild, without whom no power in Europe today seems able to make war. In a multipolar world in which five powers with distinct interests sought to resolve international crises without resorting to war, the Rothschilds acted not so much to ensure peace as to underwrite it once it had been made. The case was put in a more sophisticated form by the left-leaning liberal J.A. Hobson, author of the classic Imperialism, a Study, 1902. Like many radical writers of the period, Hobson regarded the Boer War as having been engineered by a small group of international financiers, chiefly German in origin and Jewish in race. The Rothschilds, in his view, were central to this group. Does anyone seriously suppose, he asked in Imperialism, that a great war could be undertaken by any European state or any great state alone subscribed if the House of Rothschild and its connections set their face against it? Scherb had made much the same point from a German nationalist perspective in his History. The House of Rothschild has arisen from the quarrels between states, has become great and mighty from wars, and the misfortune of states and peoples has been its fortune. English examples can also be found. In refusing Gladstone's request to make Lionel de Rothschild a peer, Queen Victoria explicitly questioned whether one who owes his great wealth to contracts with foreign governments for loans or to successful speculations on the stock exchange can fairly claim a British peerage. A good illustration is John Reeves's book, The Rothschilds, The Financial Rulers of Nations, which returns a typical verdict. The Rothschilds belong to no one nationality. They are cosmopolitan. They belong to no party. They were ready to grow rich at the expense of friend and foe alike. The central dilemma which confronted the Rothschilds lay here. Because of their wealth, other Jews looked to them for leadership in their pursuit of equal civil and political rights. They themselves had no desire to forsake their palatial town and country residences for barren Palestine.
Lionel's nephew Victor struck a similar note of ambivalence when he addressed a meeting of the Earl Baldwin Fund for Refugees. The slow murder of 600,000 people, he told his audience, is an act which has rarely happened in history. Yet, he went on, in spite of humanitarian feelings, we probably all agree that there is something unsatisfactory in refugees encroaching on the privacy of our country, even for relatively short periods of time. Even in 1946, speaking in the House of Lords, Victor defended the policy of restricting immigration to Palestine. The only logical solution was therefore to find some alternative territory for the Jews to go to. The Nazis themselves thought of Madagascar. At around the same time, the Paris House forwarded to Newport a proposal to purchase 200,000 acres of Brazil's Mato Grosso, and another to settle Jews in Sudan's Upper Nile Valley. Kenya, Northern Rhodesia, and Guyana were also considered. Only at the 11th hour, it seems, did the Rothschilds recognize the need to admit refugees into Britain and France.
This was broadly the argument of the early Zionists like Theodor Herzl, who came to believe that the only solution to the Jewish question was indeed for the Jews to leave Europe and found their own Judenstaat. Herzl made a succession of attempts to win the support of the Rothschilds in the belief that they were about to liquidate their vast capital as a response to anti-Semitic attacks. But his 66-page address to the Rothschild Family Council was never sent, as he concluded from an initial rebuff that they were vulgar, contemptuous, egotistical people. The Rothschilds, he later declared, were a national misfortune for the Jews. He even threatened to liquidate them or to wage a barbaric campaign against them if they opposed him. If a Zionist could use such language in the 1890s, it is perhaps not surprising that the radical anti-Semites who flourished in the defeated states of Central Europe after the First World War did so too. A good example is Dietrich Eckart's address to all working people of 1919. The House of Rothschild owns 40 billion. They only need to administer their wealth to see that it is nicely placed. They do not need to work, at least not what we understand by work. But who provides them and their like with such an enormous amount of money? Who does this? You do it. Nobody but you. That's right. It is your money, hard-earned through care and sorrow, which is drawn as if magnetically into the coffers of these insatiable people. Another early National Socialist who cited the Rothschilds as examples of the Jewish problem he pledged to solve was Adolf Hitler. In an article in the Nazi Völkischer Beobachter in May 1921, for example, he named them as one of a group of Jewish capitalists who controlled the socialist press. On at least 2 occasions in 1922, he gave speeches in which he referred to the significant difference between the achievements of a man like Alfred Krupp, who has bequeathed an immense national achievement through his indefatigable work as an innovator, and the rapacity of a Rothschild who financed wars and revolutions and brought the peoples into interest servitude through loans. The television preacher and Republican politician Pat Robertson's book, The New World Order, published in 1991, states that the Rothschilds were polluted by the occultism of illuminated Freemasonry, and that Paul Warburg, architect of the Federal Reserve System, was a Rothschild agent. From a completely different political milieu, Khalid Mohammed, a former assistant to Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the radical African-American organization Nation of Islam, has repeated the suggestion that the Rothschilds financed Hitler and aided his anti-Semitic policies. A cursory search of the internet reveals a plethora of conspiracy theories. The Rothschilds arranged the murder of President Lincoln, as his post-war policies would have wrecked their commodity speculation.
You know, like, when you're looking at this stuff, you got to realize that there's, like, you know, like, everything that's in existence today has its origins. You know, like, I can't stress this enough. You know, like, the people that control the world have always controlled the world. They've controlled it. Well, they haven't always controlled it, but, you know, they've controlled the propaganda that you're eating every day, for the most part. You know, like, these are things that have been distracting us from what is important and what is our real true purpose and mission here. You know? I mean, I came down here, I didn't have my shit together. It took me a lot of years for me to get my shit together. You know, but once I started to get my shit together, you know, I realized what my place in a lot of it is. And continues to be, without a doubt. Until more like-minded people step up and, you know, it's just what's going to be going on. You know, if like-minded people don't step up and make this happen, like, make this the reality that they need to see in their life. You know, like, what am I talking about? I'm talking about, like let's get to the bottom of it, right? Let's look at the fact that these people are in control right now. As I'm streaming, and I don't really have very many people looking at this, but as I'm streaming, they're shutting me down. They're blocking my page. They're blocking the picture. You know, and they don't make any of this easy. Like, this streaming thing is a very difficult task to master. You know, it's not easy, but at the same time, it has its you know, it has its benefits. You know, like, I'm sure that there's at least one person, and we had two on the show that said that they didn't know such and such, you know, since we've been airing this. You know, that they didn't know about such and such, you know, whatever it was. You know, like, this is the thing. We have to be motivated to move forward with gathering the knowledge and then using it in a way so that we can assist our brothers and sisters in humanity. You know, like, I don't know what else to do but regurgitate things that have gotten me to where I'm at. You know, like, how I came to my realizations. You know, and these people, you know, the next person that I put on, you know, like, we're, you know, still early, but the next person that I put on, we mentioned them. You know, we mentioned them. So I'm going to put some of his content up because I really don't think too many people, you know, see it, you know, in the light and manner that he portrays it. You know, perception is 9/10 of the law. The 1% that's not perception is your intention. So, well, let's get back to this because I don't, you know, we want to run this.
The Rothschilds financed the rise of Hitler as a bulwark against the Soviet Union. The Rothschilds are interwoven with the Catholic Church and jointly with the tradition.
I'm guessing you probably didn't hear anything I just said. I think I had my volume down too low. But the bottom line of what I was saying is just, it's simple. Like, unless we get to the bottom of this, unless we see the roots and the sources and, like, how all this stuff came to be, like how it manifested into our reality, this pollution of corruption and deceit and lies and deception, you know, like until this divide and conquer strategy and this problem reaction solution, you know, like these are all things, you know, like the natural laws of the universe. Like these should be common knowledge to any child. These should be common knowledge to any human being on this planet. And only the people that are in the know with it or the ones participating in it. Now there's quite a few content creators that are putting lots of great work out there. And we have to continue to do so. You know, like I create this open forum so that people can, you know, they can join the discussion with me. Like this isn't, you know, exclusive. You know, like this is the type of thing where like I want to invite everybody to be a part of this. So like I'm not going to go out there and bug people and say, "Hey, can you join my live stream?" Because this is my first time out and around doing it, and I want to play around with certain things, but at the same time, I don't want to, you know, waste people's time. So this is a first go on something that's probably going to occur every so often. But I'm definitely trying to get into a position so that I can stream my episodes live, because I think that's important. You know, to be able to communicate with people and chat with them and talk to them in the chat rooms. Important stuff. So this is just the beginning, guys. I'm hoping that you're getting something out of this.
Additional mafia and the American CIA, which was pro-Nazi. They are the hidden power which controls other well-known banks, such as Warburg's, Schroders, and Lazar's, as well as being behind American financiers such as J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, the Spires and the Lehmans, not to mention the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve System, an obvious Rothschild front. Through this network of global power, they have been responsible for, among other things, the Boer War, the creation of Israel to control the oil of the Middle East, the Russian Revolution, a coup on Russia by
what he is saying is proven. It's not like a guesstimate because these people are in, you know, positions at the time or whatever. Like, no, these people have controlled wealth and its exchange, and in return for them controlling the wealth, they controlled the flow of information, they controlled the government, they controlled policies of government. And like, why are they doing this? And where is the opposing force of good within all this? Like, these are things we're going to talk about a little bit more, but let's continue on with this, because this is amazing. It breaks it down, and you guys are, I think you are getting it. I don't know. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're not. If you're not and you want to talk about it, you know, there I am. I'm available to you, right there. So, you know, that's just how that works. So let's go ahead and continue with the
United States financial arm largely controlled by the Rothschilds, and even the floating of the dollar by President Nixon. Today, they and their associates in the Conservative Party and the press are plotting to monopolize the world's energy supplies, hence their interest in electricity, coal, and gas privatization. It might be thought that a serious banking history should scrupulously avoid reference to this kind of nonsense. Yet it is impossible to appreciate the need for a scholarly history of the subject if one blithely pretends such myths do not exist. In 1823, the 12th, 13th, and 14th cantos of Byron's Don Juan were published in London at a time when their author was embroiled, fatally as it proved, in the Greek struggle for independence. Nevertheless, these late verses indicate a keen awareness of the power of money, and specifically of the new kind of financial power personified by Nathan Rothschild. Who hold the balance of the world? Asked Byron in the 12th canto. Who reign o'er Congress, whether royalist or liberal? Who rouse the shirtless patriots of Spain? Who keep the world both old and new in pain or pleasure? Who make politics run glibber all? The shade of Bonaparte's noble daring, Jew Rothschild and his fellow Christian Bering. To Byron, Rothschild and Bering were the true lords of Europe, whose every loan is not a merely speculative hit, but seats a nation or upsets a throne. Republics also get involved a bit. Columbia's stock hath holders not unknown on change, and even thy silver soil Peru must get itself discounted by a Jew. That Byron could suggest, even satirically, that Nathan Rothschild held, along with Alexander Bering, the balance of the world, requires some explanation. In April 1825, the market began to slide. The heaviest falls were experienced by British industrial securities and Latin American bonds. Such a severe asset price deflation was bound to bring a banking crisis in its wake. As it was, 73 out of 770 country banks failed. The country came within 48 hours of putting stop to all dealings between man and man except by barter. Much of the time, Nathan was a buyer or borrower of gold and silver. In December 1825, however, it was the other way round. The Rothschilds gave the bank their gold, supplying the old lady of Threadneedle Street with enough specie from the continent to avert a suspension of cash payments. Of course, Nathan would not have made such immense deliveries of gold without asking for a generous commission in return. The operation has to be seen as part of his campaign to establish himself as the dominant force in the London bullion market. The rescue of the bank was a remarkable achievement which owed everything to the international nature of the Rothschilds' operations. In effect, the brothers were establishing that system of international monetary cooperation which would later be performed routinely by central banks, and on which the gold standard came to depend. Increasingly, their position in the international bullion market was becoming as dominant as their position in the international bond market. Byron was therefore not far wide of the mark when he suggested in Don Juan that Bering and Rothschild reigned over both royalists and liberals, and that their loans could seat a nation or upset a throne. He erred only in regarding the two bankers as financial equals. In 1815 they had been. By 1825 they were not. If there was a sixth great power in the 1820s, it was no longer Barings, but Rothschilds. At the same time, by dint of their size, the Rothschilds came to see themselves as bearing a degree of responsibility for the stability of the banking system as a whole. This explains their reluctance to see their rivals fail. In all this, the Rothschilds were increasingly beginning to think in a way fundamentally similar to that characteristic of central bankers. The central banks of England and France continued to be partly private institutions. In terms of their financial resources, they were in fact the only banks comparable with the Rothschilds, though of course they were national, where the Rothschilds were international, and the Rothschilds had no interest in resisting their monopolization of note issue. The relationships between the Rothschilds and the European central banks were thus almost always close and symbiotic. Of growing importance as a non-exclusive
Symbiotic. Yeah, symbolic. Symbolism.
source of financial information and misinformation in this period was, of course, the press. It might be thought that the proliferation of newspapers in the 19th century tended to erode the advantages which the Rothschilds were able to derive from their private system of communications. On the other hand, the existence of financial pages in newspapers presented new opportunities for influencing the markets, which the Rothschilds were not slow to exploit. Nathan responded to early press attacks by establishing what was to be an enduring relationship with the most influential of all British papers, The Times. The Times correspondent reported from St. Petersburg that the mere appearance of James Rothschild at the Bourse was expected to boost Russian bond prices. By the summer of 1825, therefore, the Rothschilds had succeeded triumphantly in establishing themselves as the leading specialists in European public finance. And not only European. New fiscal needs quickly arose from the political crises which beset the Spanish and Ottoman empires in this period. It was this need which Nathan and his brothers successfully met. The system they developed enabled British investors and other rich capitalists in Western Europe to invest in the debts of those states by purchasing internationally tradable, fixed-interest transferable bonds. The significance of this system for 19th century history cannot be overemphasized. For this growing international bond market brought together Europe's true capitalists, that elite of people wealthy enough to be able to tie up money in such assets and shrewd enough to appreciate the advantages of such assets as compared with traditional forms of holding wealth, land, venal office, and so on. Bonds were liquid. They could be bought and sold 5.5 days out of 7 on the major bourses of Europe and traded informally at other times and in other places. And they were capable of accruing large capital gains. If investors bid up the price of a government's stock, that government could feel secure. If they dumped its stock, that government was quite possibly living on borrowed time as well as money. For this reason, bond prices had a significance which historians have too seldom spelt out. They were, it might be said, a kind of daily opinion poll, an expression of confidence in a given regime. Of course, they were an opinion poll based on a highly unrepresentative sample by modern democratic standards. Only the wealthy, the capitalists, got the vote. These capitalists were thus to a large extent Europe's political class. Indeed, the kind of people who held government bonds were, very roughly speaking, the people who were represented politically, and their opinions were the opinions that mattered in a stratified, undemocratic society. The singular beauty of the bond market was that virtually every state, including, as the century advanced, all the new nation-states and colonies, had sooner or later to come to it, and most states had sizable amounts of tradable debt in circulation. The varying fortunes of government bonds provide a vital insight into the political history of the period. They are also the key to understanding the extent of the power of a bank like Rothschild's, which for much of the 19th century was the prime market maker for such bonds. What determined the ups and downs of the 19th century bond market? The answer to this question is central to any understanding of the history of the Rothschild Bank. Obviously, economic factors played an important part, but the most important factor was political confidence. The confidence of investors, and especially of big market-making investors like the Rothschilds, in the ability of the bond-issuing states to continue to meet their obligations, that is, to pay the interest on their bonds. There were only really two things which might cause them not to do so: war, which would increase their expenditures and decrease their tax revenues, and internal instability, ranging from a change of ministry to full-blown revolution. It was for indications of either of these possible crises that the markets and the Rothschilds, more than anybody, watched. Three things would give an investor an edge over his rival: closeness to the center of political life, the source of news, the speed with which he could receive news of events in states far and near, and the ability to manipulate the transmission of that news to other investors. This explains why the Rothschilds spent so much time, energy, and money maintaining the best possible relations with the leading political figures of the day. It also explains why they carefully developed a network of salaried agents in other key financial markets, whose job it was not only to trade on their behalf, but also to keep them supplied with the latest financial and political news. The Rothschilds' communications network gave them an important advantage over their competitors. Even after they lost this edge, they continued to exercise an influence over the financial press through which news reached a wider public. Indeed, it can be argued that by modifying the existing system for government borrowing to make bonds more easily tradable, the Rothschilds actually created the international bond market in its modern form. As early as August 1820, the Bremen delegate to the German Confederation's Diet in Frankfurt had a conversation with his Austrian counterpart, Count Buol, which acutely identified the unrivaled extent of the Rothschilds' political influence in Europe. This house has, through its enormous financial transactions and its banking and credit connections, actually achieved the position of a real power. It has to such an extent acquired control of the general money market that it is in a position either to hinder or to promote, as it feels inclined, the movements and operations of potentates, and even of the greatest European powers.
In fact, the rest of the 19th century was known as the Age of the Rothschilds. They financed Cecil Rhodes, making it possible for him to establish a monopoly over the diamond and gold fields of South Africa. In America, they financed the Harrimans in railroads, the Vanderbilts in railroads and the press, and Carnegie in the steel industry, among many others. By 1850, James Rothschild, the heir of the French branch of the family, was said to be worth 600 million French francs, 150 million more than all the other bankers in France put together.
He built this mansion called Ferrier, just east of Paris.
Wilhelm I, on seeing it, exclaimed, "Kings couldn't afford this. It could only belong to a Rothschild." Another 19th century French commentator put it this way: "There is but one power in Europe, and that is Rothschild."
By the end of the 19th century, one expert estimated that the Rothschild family controlled half the wealth of the world. Despite this overwhelming wealth, the family has generally cultivated an aura of invisibility. Although the family controls scores of industrial, commercial, mining, and tourist corporations, only a handful bear the Rothschild name.
There is no evidence that their predominant standing in European or world finance has changed.
A dynasty turns jet. Things were getting back to normal in 1945, but what, in family terms, was normalcy? The house at Hamilton Place, built by Leo, became one of London's most luxurious clubs. Another Rothschild residence in Kensington Gardens now constitutes the Soviet-Russian embassy. And in France, the Titanic manse at 2 Rue Florentin on the Place de la Concorde has gone the way of all Titanic manses. Talleyrand had lived there before Edouard de Rothschild moved in. When Edouard put it on the market, only one customer could afford the price: Uncle Sam. It became the European headquarters of the Marshall Plan, and today is tenanted by the United States mission to NATO and to European regional organizations. Henri de Rothschild's huge place at 33 Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré now houses the Cercle Interallié, a fancy international diplomatic club. On the same street, the United States Embassy has taken over number 41, built by the first Baron Edmond. The Rothschild monograms still crown the great portals of both houses. Last, not least, Ferrier, the crown jewel among Rothschild possessions. No one was rich enough to buy it, nor did the French branch want to part with such a symbol.
Initially, a great deal of labor went into untangling the various pre-war debts on which countries like Chile and Hungary had defaulted. New issues, like the 1951 offering of £5 million of stock for the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, usually known as the World Bank, had to be shared with other city houses. The old Rothschild predominance in the South African gold market had already been reasserted 3 years previously, when the international gold market reopened. Once again, the World Gold Prize was formally set in Newcourt's fixing room.
Through a string of holding companies, Newcourt could now tap monumental lumber, power, mineral, particularly uranium, resources. And Winston Churchill, appreciative of the scale of the thing, termed it a grand imperial concept. After Antony's death, his two nephews, Edmund and Leopold, took over together with Antony's son, Evelyn.
In addition, Evelyn sat on the boards of Beaverbrook newspapers, The Economist, and later the Telegraph plc.
Edmund, the senior partner, struck out in still other directions, as owner and operator of the Royal Mint Refinery, as gold agent to the Bank of England, and as merchant banker extraordinary, consolidating still further Newcourt's position as a key bullion broker in the English Commonwealth,
and laying the foundation for its present preeminent position in the Australian natural resources market. Rothschild Australia accounts for around a third of the N.M. Rothschild Group's profits. It retained its long-standing interest in gold, even after the breakdown of the gold pool as a consequence of the pressures brought to bear on the dollar by the Vietnam War. Above all, it was to the countries of the developing European Economic Community that the bank looked. Most far-sighted of all was the Rothschild plan for a new currency called the EURCO, European Composite Unit, based on the values of 9 major European currencies, forerunner of the later ECU and Euro. In September 1967, a Channel Study Group was formed, along with Morgan Grenfell, Lazar and Barings, in an effort to revive the old Victorian dream of a tunnel under the English Channel. N.M. Rothschild maintained its interest in the project and acted as advisor to the European Channel Tunnel Group, which initiated the present Channel in 1981. It was at around this time that Guy, the head of the Paris house, was being touted in some quarters as EEC banker Rothschild.
The French Rothschilds are richer still, and they have become richer faster since Baron Guy assumed the reins at the death of his father Edouard. With similar aggressiveness, Guy has fortified the position of de Rothschild Frères as the largest private bank in France. His main instrument here is the Compagnie du Nord, the railroad network, which became family property after the dynasty James financed it into existence. Through its railroad-turned-investment trust, the family controlled, and after the Nazi nightmare controls again, mining corporations, metal plants, oil interests, chemical industries, and many others. This sort of setup requires a feudal allegiance. There are whole families that have been on the Rothschild payroll for over a century.
A first tentative step in this direction was taken in 1960, when N.M. Rothschild and Warburgs placed £340,000 shares in the August Thyssen Steel Company on the London market, the first German shares to be quoted in London since the war.
Then there is Guy's cousin, Edmond. He is faithful enough to family discretion to keep the portals of number 45, Rue de Faubourg Saint-Honoré, signless and anonymous. From this headquarters he runs the Compagnie Financière, a worldwide organization which builds villas, hotels, pipelines in Israel, throws up giant housing projects in Paris, finances banks and car factories in Brazil. He greatly enlarged the family holdings on the slopes of Mont Blanc, complete with ski lifts, swimming pools, tennis courts, and nightclubs. He also underwrites and develops not merely hotels, but entire new tourist regions in Martinique and Guadeloupe in the French Caribbean. With Lord Rothschild as partner, he is responsible for the flowering of Israel's luxury golf resort at Caesarea. Edmund James Rothschild Memorial Group contributed $1 million to the Weizmann Scientific Institute in Tel Aviv, gave $3 million towards the construction of the Knesset, and foots the bill for many of Israel's archaeological expeditions.
Pre-1914 links to Japan were also renewed by Edmund, who made several visits there between 1962 and 1969, arranging Eurodollar bond issues in partnership with Nomura Securities for a number of Japanese companies, including Hitachi and Pioneer. The logical way of advancing Britain's financial integration with the continent was to establish some kind of cross-channel institutional link. The creation of Rothschild's Continuation Holdings AG as the Swiss-based parent company was in this sense pregnant with historical significance. To recreate something like the system of international partnership which had been the Rothschilds' greatest strength in the 19th century. The N.M. Rothschild Group is thus a multinational entity. More than 50% of its assets are now held outside the UK, with a wide geographical reach. Again, reminiscent of the system of houses which had been developed by Meyer Amschel's sons after 1815.
So there it is. Nothing's actually, nothing's changed. It's still the same exact system in place now, with the same people in place doing it now that was doing it before. But I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it to you guys. I mean, I got to show it. I got to show the origins. I got to show how it filters through. But so we were talking earlier about Larkin Rose, and I'm really impressed with like everything that this guy's ever done. Like seriously, because like he's, how do I say? All right, so the one time that I actually I read this story, or no, I watched a story. It was a video, and it was called The Dot, and it was like really entertaining, but It definitely was exactly the situation. Like we outnumber them so bad that why do you think they do it the way they're doing it? You know, like this guy, his content, you could find him at the same network I'm on, the One Great Work Network, and all his works there. You know, like that's how it's all listed out. But, you know, the one that I wanted to actually show you guys is this one here, because he actually talks about what we're talking about here.
Hey, this is Larkin Rose. I wanted to quickly throw together a series of short videos addressing some of the statist absurdities that are out there. I'm talking about ideas and terms that are all over the place. You'll hear them mentioned constantly in the media. You'll hear politicians using them. You've probably even used them yourself. And these ideas, despite the fact that they're all over the place, they bear no resemblance to reality. They're utterly absurd. And I'll do these in no particular order, but we'll start with the concept of public servants. In the media, you'll constantly hear politicians, federal, state, local, it doesn't matter. You'll constantly hear legislators referred to as public servants, as if they're out there doing the work of the people and serving us, and so on and so forth. Now, this particular lie has been unraveling for a while, because there are so many examples demonstrating that the politicians aren't doing what they do for us. They don't care what we want. They don't care what we think. When they go out there and raise taxes while people are saying, we're taxed enough already, we can't handle it, politicians say, we don't care, we're raising them again. When they go out and they do their warmongering, and most of the country says, we don't like that, we don't want that, politicians say, we don't care. They try to nationalize the healthcare industry when most of the people say, we don't want you to do that. They do it anyway. One of the most ridiculous examples, bailouts, where they steal gazillions of dollars from you and me and all the normal people and give huge piles of money to gigantic corporations and gigantic international banks and basically all the politicians' rich buddies. The notion that they're doing that for our benefit is just ridiculous. But even without all those examples, even without being able to show, look at all these ways in which the politicians obviously don't care what we think, even without them, the concept of public servants, the concept itself is inherently bogus. And you can understand that as soon as you understand what the terms even mean. You talk about politicians as public servants. Well, what are politicians? What do they do? What do legislators do? Well, they legislate. That's why they're called legislators. But what does that mean? Well, they write laws. Well, what's a law? Well, they get together and they scribble down a whole bunch of words on paper, and it may be a gazillion pages long and convoluted, confusing terminology, but the template is always the same. Every law either is telling the rest of us, you must do this, or you may not do that. And if we catch you disobeying us, we will send men with guns to hurt you, to take your property, or to put you in a cage. That's all the law is. That's all the law ever is. Every law is a threat of violence, usually against you. They're threatening you with violence if you don't obey whatever commands they come up with this week. And sometimes they try to hide that reality under layers of euphemism and propaganda. And so some people will say, well, they don't just threaten people. The government gives to the poor. No, they don't. Government produces nothing of value. It produces no wealth. They don't give to the poor. They use threats of violence to make you give to the poor. They say, we're going to tax you and we're going to put you in a cage if you resist, and then we're going to take your money and give it to the poor, and then we're going to say, look how charitable and compassionate we are. They don't give to the poor. They use the threat of violence to make you and me give to the poor. And that's what every law is. That's what every law is a threat of violence. Now, if you have one group of people that issues threats of violence against another group, this group is not serving this group. The notion that they're forcibly dominating this group to serve it and for its benefit, for its own good, it's just ridiculous. You know, if you accept that the people who do that are public servants, then I'd like to volunteer to be your servant. So what I'm going to do is boss you around and tell you what to do, tell you what you can do, tell you what you're not allowed to do, tell you how you have to behave, tell you what choices you have to make, and take a whole bunch of your money and send armed thugs to hurt you if you disobey me. If I did that, you wouldn't call it serving you. When they do it, all the media says they're serving us, they're public servants. It's completely ridiculous. Let me put this in the simplest possible terms. If somebody bosses you around and takes your money, he's not your servant. If he doesn't boss you around and take your money, he's not government. That's what government is. It's a ruling class that coercively dominates everyone else. That's what they are. They can't be a servant. It's not just, oh, they don't represent us very well these days. They can't be a servant because what they are, by definition, is the group that issues threats against the rest of us. You can't serve somebody by threatening them with violence and forcibly controlling their choices and extorting a bunch of money from them. You don't serve someone by doing that. Government cannot be a public servant by the nature of what it is. Now, in order to try to defend this particular statist absurdity, a lot of people will spout other statist absurdities. Well, we elect them, so we're really in charge, and they represent us because we delegate to them the power to do these things, and so on and so forth. None of that is remotely close to being true, but each of those is its own statist absurdity, so I'll do separate videos to address each of those things. Here's the point for today. Don't call people who boss you around and steal your money public servants. They're not. They're a parasitic ruling class of God-complex, narcissistic megalomaniacs. They dominate you, and then they convince you that they're serving you by bossing you around.
I was talking to a friend of mine.
Stop repeating that ridiculous mythology. They are parasites. Call them what they are. And when other people in front of you say, "Our public servants," please correct them. It's just embarrassing to see otherwise rational people referring to thieves and murderers as their servants. If you really want to know how profoundly political mythology is warping your view of reality, get a copy of The Most Dangerous Superstition.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I just, you know, guys, here's another one. One more, just one more, okay? Just one more, because he's really on point with a lot of this stuff. So, just one more, guys, okay?
Gather round to hear the good word from the Right Reverend Larkin Rose.
I've learned the hard way that a lot of people really cannot grasp satire and sarcasm. So I'm going to start with the disclaimer here. When I was getting ready to do what I'm about to do, I had two main concerns. The first was that I thought some people might be truly offended who really don't need to be, who really shouldn't be. My second concern was that some people wouldn't be offended when they totally should be. We read now from the Gospel according to government, first book of Politicians, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning there was chaos and mayhem, and people were as wild beasts, and there was great wailing and gnashing of teeth throughout the land. Then it came to pass that politicians came down out of heaven, shining in glory, and spoke unto the people, saying, We are the Lord thy government, and we have decided to bless you with our presence, so that we may save you from your sins. Obey our commandments, pay tribute unto us, and salvation shall be yours. For without us, you are but stupid, violent animals, and only through our benevolent domination of you shall ye be transformed into a civilized and prosperous people. And the people wondered at the words of the politicians and were sorely afraid. But the politicians said unto them, Fear not. If you will only blindly obey the God-called government and mindlessly comply with our every whim, then you shall be blessed. But any who disobey our commands, the heathens and criminals who think for themselves, being evil in our sight, shall be cast into prison and banished from the collectivist authoritarian paradise we shall create. So cast aside your individual judgment, your free will, your conscience, and your moral codes, and follow us, the high priests of government, without thought or question. The foolish man builds his house upon consensus, cooperation, and voluntary interaction. But the wise man builds his house upon political promises, state coercion, and the lust for power. Free will, self-determination, and peaceful coexistence are the devil's work and lead only to fire and brimstone, suffering and torment. But blind obedience, unthinking loyalty, and unwavering subservience are the path to salvation. You have heard that it hath been said, Love your neighbor and do unto others as you would have done unto you. But we, the politicians, say unto you, Pray for the incarceration or extermination of those who are not like you. But pray also for your neighbors to be taxed and regulated. Pray for your friends to be controlled and enslaved. Devote your heart and soul to the rituals of politics, so that we, the high priests of government, may dominate all of mankind for its own good. Only then shall you have everlasting peace. We are the Lord thy government, and here are our commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before government. Thou shalt follow no moral codes and no value systems above the arbitrary whims of the politicians. Thou shalt not take the name of government in vain or speak against us, the high priests of state. For those who do are sinners, criminals, and terrorists in our eyes, and shall be wiped from the face of the earth. Remember election day to keep it holy. Judge not the politicians or their mercenaries, lest ye be put on the no-fly list. Honor thy congressman and thy senator, that their reign may be long upon the land which the Lord thy government has taken from thee. Thou shalt murder by voting for those who engage in perpetual warmongering. Thou shalt kill whenever government commands it, and the killing shall be called national defense, serving one's country and spreading democracy. No greater love hath a man than this, that a man will go halfway around the world to murder complete strangers because we told him to. Thou shalt steal by voting for your neighbors to be taxed, and thou shalt hate and persecute any who resist. Thou shalt covet thy neighbor's income, and his car, and his house, and everything that is thy neighbor's. Thou shalt beg the Lord thy government to take these things from thy neighbor, and give them unto thee. Verily we say unto you, it is greedy and selfish to keep what you have earned, but noble and virtuous to ask us to forcibly take what your neighbor has earned. Thou shalt bear false witness by calling thieves and robbers public servants, by calling usurpers and tyrants leaders and representatives, and by calling those who advocate liberty for all criminals and terrorists. Blessed are the blindly obedient, for the politicians shall reward them. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst after power, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the voters, for they shall legitimize tyranny and oppression. Blessed are the bankers, for they shall embezzle the earth. Blessed are the jackbooted thugs, for they shall get away with murder. Blessed are the corrupt in heart, for they shall receive power. Blessed are the warmongers, for they shall imagine themselves to be gods. Blessed are they who have persecuted the innocent for the politician's sake, for they shall be promoted. And cursed are the heathens and extremists who speak out against our tyranny, who encourage you to question authority, and who instruct you to disobey immoral commands. We, the politicians, say unto you, worship those who insult and exploit you, bow to those who extort and oppress you, and vote for those who despitefully use you and persecute you. Here ends our reading from the first book of Politicians, from the Gospel according to Government. I'm very happy to be able to preach to this congregation because I sense that many of you need help, because I believe you are losing faith in the God called government. Now, at times, our wise and benevolent political masters, they test our faith to make sure we are true believers by doing things which to us may seem insane and immoral. But it is not our place to question. If we are good and pure, we will gladly pay and obey. If we don't like the wars, if we think there's something wrong with them taking our money and giving it to giant banks, or running Ponzi schemes, or fabricating crime, it is a testament to our faith that we will blindly, unthinkingly go along with this oppression to show our loyalty to the state. It is a sin to question the wisdom of our betters, the politicians. I think God has something to say about this. Thanks. The righteous among us will tolerate every indignity and humiliation and insult to show our faith in the state. And only heretics would ever suggest that the politicians that are in Washington are not our rightful lords and masters. Do not listen to such blasphemy. In fact, report it to the authorities whenever you hear it. Ask not what you can do to improve society. Ask how you can empower and enrich the parasitic ruling class so that they can create a totalitarian utopia for all of us. I hope these words will be of value to you. I hope you will apply these lessons to your life. So the next time a cop or a tax collector or a bureaucrat decide to butt into your life or boss you around or rob you or assault you or tase you, I hope you can find the strength to pathetically grovel and submit without question and blindly obey their every whim and cooperate with whatever injustice and hardship they wish to inflict upon you or anyone else, because that is the mark of a virtuous, noble citizen, and that is the path to salvation. Look how well it worked for the Russians and the Germans and the Chinese and the subjects of every other tyrannical regime in history. May we too find peace through warmongering, freedom through subservience, justice through violent aggression, and prosperity through universal enslavement. Here end our lessons. Blessed are those who blindly follow orders and do not think for themselves. Amen. Okay, I'm back. I regained my sanity. Now, what's really sad is what I just delivered is basically the message that we all got, with a few exceptions. We all got from our teachers, from our parents, from the media, and from the government. Now, it wasn't quite that direct or honest, but that is the underlying message, that obedience to the state is a virtue. What's even more sad is government is the religion that people really believe in. Of all the people who label themselves Christian, Jewish, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, whatever, the real religion of the vast majority of people in this country and the world is the worship of government. It's the God they bow to, it's the God they pray for blessings, and it's the God they obey. Where they go on Sunday morning is just window dressing. I want to give a few closing words as this PorcFest winds down. To me, the beauty of PorcFest is not that we're all the same, because we're not. It's not that we all care about the same things, because we don't. It's not that we all agree on everything, because we don't. We just have one thing in common, and that's that we believe in freedom. You know, the media and people out there, they like to talk about diversity. I've never seen any crowd anywhere with the diversity of PorcFest. We have rich and poor and everything in between, and Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, some religions I haven't even heard of before. Men and women, old and young, all sorts of races. We have gun toters and pacifists, gay and straight, a whole bunch of different personalities, different interests, different priorities, different beliefs. And we do disagree on a lot of things, which is why we like to stand around discussing, even arguing. But we get along. What you don't see here is you don't see us robbing each other. You don't see us assaulting each other or attacking each other or threatening each other. You also don't see cops. Now, you may see a couple and not know it because apparently they think peaceful coexistence is such a horrible thing that they need to infiltrate it. Other than that, you don't see cops or authority or government, but we get along. So the last thing I want to say is a message not to the people here, but to everyone else on the planet, the rest of the world, knowing that hopefully this will make it to YouTube. Everyone else, you say you want world peace. You say you want freedom and justice and equality and security. You say you want peaceful coexistence. Well, guess what? We have all of that right here at PorcFest. So to the rest of the world, you say you want all those things, and I want you to have all those things. I want the whole world to be PorcFest. And it doesn't mean we all agree. It doesn't mean we see eye to eye on everything. We don't. We already don't, and we never will. That's just fine. We get along. To the rest of the world, if you really want those things, if you really want world peace, justice, freedom, you can have it. But I'll tell you the price. I'll tell you what it's going to cost you if you really want that. Give up the cult of statism and embrace humanity. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, like he's just amazing. Like seriously. Like I admire his content. Everything that I ever watched from him has always been like spot on. So there's another guy that I pay attention to a little bit here, and he's actually not too bad. He has very deep-rooted psychological understandings of what's going on, and his point of view and his perspective are pretty awesome. So this is where you can find his content. It's at the Subtle Infinity. That's his YouTube page. So we'll go to his home page for a second. You can see that's what it looks like when you land on his page. So
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He's a chemist, and we got into the science discussion and expanded into, very briefly, the broken cosmology that's sold to us and all the other lies that are.
That's his page right there, just so you can see.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He's a chemist, and we got into the science discussion and expanded into, very briefly, the broken cosmology that's sold to us and all the other lies that are connected to the political scene, the education system, history. And as that discussion, this is with other people around too, as that discussion started to expand, you could see the sort of blind, adamant defending of something that, like, the education system defends their so-called facts that are based on theories. The people do this inherently from an even less stable foundation to explain things from. But when you have people who go to school for sciences and they have their degrees, they have their confirmation from the man that they are something, it's harder for them to accept or even entertain the idea of what they've been trained, conditioned, manipulated to believe for so long can be based in falsehood, could be a lie. But yet these same people, a lot of the times, are aware of the system lying to them. They're aware of false flags. They're aware of the corruption in the education system, in the government, in the food industry, in the Justice Department, around the world. They're aware of why things are the way they are to a certain degree. This is why I say it's dangerous to have people only being aware of a certain fraction of core issues, because the gap in between the rest of that information allows for the ego to start to defend systems that are actually working against you. This happens when I go into the depths of what needs to be done in reference to years and years of indoctrination through racism and supremacy. That doesn't go away just because people are tired of it or people just get over it. Sometimes it will never go away. Like if a child was kidnapped and indoctrinated by their kidnappers for years and years, decades of their lives, the Stockholm syndrome that sets in, all of the beliefs that they have consumed from these criminals for their entire lives, more time than they had before they were stolen. Everything that they believe, everything that they've experienced in life has been reversed and flipped upside down and sold back to them in a way that works against them. Their entire psyche has been reset. This has happened to masses of people for generations. That same concept has happened in many different ways with the system of racism, white supremacy, for generations of people. So much so that the families are now selling these ideas, these sicknesses and diseases to the next generations, as if they're a positive, selling the idea that the lighter skins are better than the darker skins in their own family, showing favoritism, straightening their hair, praying to a god that looks like their local politician, their teachers in their public education system, by design, breaking them down on the soul, mind, and body level through this mind control. And people just poo-poo it and dismiss it away and actually talk shit, come down on the people who are expanding upon this disease that needs to be addressed fully. They're doing that because they don't know the depths of why things are the way they are. So to think that stuff just goes away is absurd. To think that it's a non-issue to address something like racism just because the system is using it to further divide us.
That's right.
Of course they're going to use racism because they know it works. Why would you go away from something that you've been using for hundreds of years?
And it
You think
works
they would
for
just leave that tool against the people? They would just leave it alone, let it just dissipate away, and let people just heal themselves? No, they're going to use that, expand upon it, and manipulate the way that system interacts with the people to further their systems on into the future. And if people are talking about going to the depths of healing that program within the people, do you not think that they will have people going against those people? Of course they will, because that's a threat. It's a threat against the tools that are used to enslave the people on every level. So whether it's paid bots or paid trolls that are doing it online, or mind-controlled people in real life who are doing it in person and online, doesn't matter, because it all has the same effect. It all does the same thing. And this same thing is the same thing that the system does overall. It's designed to have that effect. It's designed to have both people paid to do certain things within these systems, within the justice system, within the education system, within your entertainment system, within your political system. There are both people doing it mindfully, they're aware of why they're doing it, and there are people doing it unconsciously. They're protecting a system that works against them, that works against their people, that works against the generations of people. And just the idea of having a people is a threat to this system. This is why they push that we're all one, we all need to come together. Under what? Under what belief system are you talking about?
Government.
To what end should we come together? What are our goals? What are we trying to do here?
That's
This
their
is why I'm
goals,
saying
is
it's so important
control
to
us.
establish yourself in deep roots, because the people that are in that shallow root program are pushing hard to promote this come together space, because that's the only thing that they have to hold on to. Because either they haven't done the work to go any deeper, or they're paid to stay shallow. Because if you stay shallow and you keep people shallow, your movements will move forward to a certain degree, and then they will fail, or the people will give up, which is the same thing. And all of that is a benefit to the system that is meant to control. So they will amplify, they will push these systems. They will push a Black Lives Matter movement, because they know that it's powerless, it's empty. Not even going into the fact that it's all bought and paid for by the Democratic Party. Not even dealing with that. Just the overall atmosphere of mattering. Mattering to who? It's not an empowered space. It's a victimized space. And not even a victimized space from a place of reality. Why would you need to matter to criminals who don't see you as more than animals anyway? They've never seen you as human. Our story matters, but are they going to the depths of our story? No. Their matters are dealing with the political scene. And those are the systems that are working against us. So that program is actually putting more energy into the system that works against the people it's claiming to be for. This happens individually, as
Been
well
watching
as
them for
in
years.
these movements. Your New Age community is littered with these mindsets, these smaller groups of people, and the overall bigger group that is the New Age thought process, asking for change, asking to come together. They're asking for the New World Government. They're asking for the governments of the world to come together as one human race, and control everything. This is what the whole space program is founded on. Selling fear. We could be destroyed by a comet, by an asteroid. The sun could explode. Mass famine. The grid could go down. An alien race could come and take us over. The climate will change and we'll be flooded out forever. There could be some coronal mass ejection that shoots solar radiation to us and fries everybody on Earth. There's super volcanoes that are underground that are boiling. They're going to explode. There could be nuclear war. These scientists and these politicians work hand in hand to push this fear.
They beat a
because
drum.
the programs that they work for, they get funding from the fear. That funding is nothing more than like corporations have people going to politicians convincing them, paying them to push certain legislature that benefits their companies. The fear is the currency used to manipulate political action, to put funding into these programs that benefit these corporations, these systems. And the people are so misinformed or uninformed about the depths of these systems, and informed only up to a certain degree, a degree that allows the system to be voted upon to move forward. So none of these systems are for your benefit. They never were. Why do you think the system adamantly ignores something like colonialism? That's at the core of their history, of their power, their control. Where do you think they got all this land and resources?
Take down a few statues.
Did it just materialize out of the sky? No, it was stolen by force, using everything from biological warfare to actual warfare, murder, genocide. They've written the bad things like that out of history and celebrate the so-called good things. This is why they have to push so hard stuff like Christmas, feel good, happy joy holidays. They went so far as to even celebrate people like Christopher Columbus Day, Thanksgiving Day. Blatant lies in your face, hidden under the guise of, coming together. Oh, you can't talk about Thanksgiving. People are so fully vested into it, they don't even want to go to the depths of the lies of why things are the way they are. The 4th of July, all of these based in ideals, belief systems, shallow, that don't go into the depths. They won't talk about colonialism. They won't talk about genocide. They won't talk about crimes committed by this system. This is like a kidnapper making...
No, and I'm gonna just... The reason why they're not gonna tell you about it is because they're still doing it. This is what they've been doing. This is why we have to stop the vote, guys. Participating in this farce is just way too much. We need to get on our feet as a civilization and leave these corrupt systems behind.
Holidays in the time after they kidnap these children, as if they didn't kidnap them.
Right.
You think they're going to talk about the crime of kidnapping the kids? No, they have to further indoctrinate them. They have to maintain that Stockholm syndrome. This is what all these systems and these holidays are. So when you talk directly to people, that stuff works unconsciously, and they will defend this system. Usually when I get these discussions, I don't even allow them to go any further, because I just blatantly ask people, like, what are you protecting? What are your goals? If you want to talk about this system, if you want to talk about the way things are, you're clearly defending an ideal, a system. For what purpose? What are your goals? I have clearly my goals. I state my goals every time. We have to go to the depths, and that involves uprooting the entire system.
That's what I say all the time. Yeah, I'm a rootist. We got to go to the root of the problems. He puts it together so well, though. I mean, look, follow his content, like, for real. Like, he's got some good stuff going on. Look, it's 12 midnight on the East Coast. I'm going to round this off at about 15 minutes, and then we're going to shut it down. So I'll give people an opportunity to join in for the last few minutes if they choose to. I'll put the title card up for them. So it's up to you if you want to join in the discussion. So we'll put that up.
And that's when you get the, oh, well, or you get people who fakely agree with you. Yeah, I guess we do have to deal with the entire, but they don't know what you're talking about. They don't know. They just want you to shut up. That's just another way of telling you to shut up, to fakely agree with you. Because as soon as they say that, yeah, well, we do have to address the entire system, here comes the but, well, we have to do this and that. So that's just dismissing you. They're agreeing with you to dismiss you right after that. If they have a but, they're not interested in what you have to say. They're not interested in where you're coming from. They're only interested in defending their belief systems based on theories or emotions. Just like holidays are defended because of the emotional energy, the time spent from other people over generations, the time spent investing into each other. It's focused on that. They're like, you want to get rid of this? Like, people aren't saying, don't be happy. Don't celebrate anything. The system has their tentacles
I
so
agree with
deeply
them,
in
and you
these
should-
people
you
that
should
they can't
celebrate
even
life
entertain the
every day,
idea of acting, of doing anything outside of having a reason for it, approved by the system, coming together, celebrating, whatever it is. You have to have a reason, a holiday. Oh, why are you doing this? Oh, basically saying, has the state approved your celebration? What reasoning has the state given you? Has the government given you a valid reason for celebrating? If they haven't, then it doesn't matter. Have the corporations approved your party for this weekend? This is the sole reason why I share the information from the perspectives that I do on this channel, is to expand this conversation. Because if people are moving, the system wants you to move before you empower yourself, before you get all the information, because they can fill in the blanks of your awareness
As you go along in
with
it.
more mind control, with more systems that are going to work against you either now or in the future.
Wow.
Or going to destabilize your movements now. And since people haven't been moving, people have been stagnant for so long, any kind of movement will not only be immediately accepted, but it will be defended. People will defend these movements. People are defending Black Lives Matter, not even being aware that it's run by this system. And some people are even aware that it's run by the system and will still defend it. The same way somebody will say, yeah, I agree with you that the whole system needs to be addressed, and then add that, but you know, we have to. It's the same thing. They can't let it go. They're too fully invested in it. The main thing is, largely, it's not only being fully invested in it, the other percentage of it is being codependent upon it. So people who have big families, people who are paid a lot, people who have their egos, who are inflamed from being successful within this system, they can't let it go. They'll set up programs under the guise of the betterment of everybody else to make you successful within the system, just like they have been, to validate their success within that system. So they will maintain their enslavement by expanding the systems within the overall system. And that maintenance, that success within there will keep them from entertaining ideas that challenge the entire system. So those systems will keep people away from people who are addressing the entire system. And the defense is to even dismiss and downplay people who address the entire system. And it's not shocking to me anymore because I see this as a psychological condition.
Yeah,
it's a condition to protect this system. And when you have people dealing with these conditions, these diseases, it's like something that they can't, it's out of their control. It's not something that they're even aware of. So that's why I say a lot of the times, most of the times, it's not even worth entertaining the back and forth, the debates, the arguments, especially the arguments. Won't go there at all. But I don't even have the energy to even entertain debates. I saw another debate just recently between a flat earther and a globe earther. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? And then I tuned into it and saw the same thing. Somebody saying, you know, it's the shape of a sphere. It doesn't have to be a perfect sphere. It's like almost like an egg. Like,
yeah. So I'm gonna stop it right there. But I think you get the idea with this guy and his work. It's pretty good stuff. I'm not going to you know, this is what I'm saying, guys. In order for us to like get out of this mess that we're in, we have to. We absolutely have to. We have to take in the information that's being presented. Now, a few people chimed in on this, and I'm sure if a lot more people knew about it or had the time that they would have also. But this is what I'm going to say. As far as voting and the concept that, you know, like I tried to show like a diversity of, you know, all of it. You know, I try to show a diversity that, you know, shows the whatchamacallit, the diversity of the fraud. The fraud that's like prevalent in this whole thing. You know, and I don't know if I was able to touch like every aspect of that. But I sure did try to touch every aspect of that. So, the one thing I will say is this. Again, I won't be voting. And I participate in the system in the way that I have to participate in the system in order for me to do what I do today. I would much rather us all be in agreement to not participate in this corrupt system anymore so that we could move on to being a more productive species. You know, putting an end to the suffering that's going on a global level. You know, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this. I was playing with a lot of new toys and abilities and things that I haven't done, you know, in a while, and bringing it all together in a way so that I could entertain you guys and, you know, connect with anybody that wanted to connect with me. So if you think that there's more to be told on this, we can continue this discussion tomorrow. I don't know exactly what time I will be on, but I will be on again tomorrow. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you for listen, thanks for being more informed about what's going on now. Because if you've come this far, I'm sure there's got to be something somewhere that you saw, another creator, someone that chimed in up to this point, you know, that you saw that impacted you in a different kind of way, or at least reminding you of certain aspects you may have forgotten. But know this, nothing changes if nothing changes. And the biggest declaration we can make to them, the biggest nonviolent declaration we can make to them, is to stand up and say, no, I'm not voting for nobody. I'm not getting involved with this crap anymore. And then we work to dismantle it correctly, peacefully, as a species, as a society. We start here in this country, America, or any other country. It doesn't matter where it starts, as long as it catches wind and catches fire. Because we can't keep going like this. We just can't keep going like this.